The afternoon sunlight streams through the windows of Rosewood Bakery, casting everything in warm, golden hues that make the glass display cases sparkle like jewels. The smell of fresh-baked bread mingles with hints of vanilla and cinnamon, creating an atmosphere so welcoming that passers-by often stop just to breathe it in through the open door. This corner bakery has anchored this neighborhood for 3 generations, its wooden floors worn smooth by countless feet, its walls painted the color of buttercream and lined with black and white photographs of families celebrating birthdays, weddings, and anniversaries with cakes from this very shop. Behind the counter, Mrs. Eleanor Patterson wipes down the already spotless glass with practiced movements. At 72, she moves with the efficiency of someone who has spent 30 years perfecting every detail of this business. Her silver hair is pulled back in a neat bun, and her apron bears the faint dusting of flour that never quite washes out, no matter how many times it goes through the washing machine. She knows every regular customer's favorite order, remembers which children are allergic to nuts, and can spot someone having a difficult day from 50 feet away. The brass bell above the door chimes softly, and Mrs. Patterson looks up to see a little girl entering alone. The child cannot be more than 6 years old, with blonde hair pulled into 2 pigtails that stick out at slightly different angles, suggesting she dressed herself this morning. Her pink dress, decorated with tiny purple flowers, hangs loosely on her small frame, clearly a hand-me-down, or perhaps purchased with growth in mind. She clutches a small canvas bag against her chest, with both hands holding it like it contains the most precious treasure in the world. The little girl moves slowly through the bakery, her wide blue eyes taking in every detail of the display cases with the kind of wonder that adults have forgotten how to feel. She stops in front of each cake, studying the decorations with intense concentration. Her breathing creates small clouds of fog on the glass as she presses closer to see the intricate sugar flowers, the smooth buttercream swirls, the chocolate ganache that catches the light like dark mirrors. Mrs. Patterson recognizes the signs immediately. This child moves like someone who understands that treats are special occasions, not everyday occurrences. She walks with the careful reverence of a person who knows that sweet things require saving money, planning ahead, and sometimes doing without other things to make them possible. There is something about her posture that speaks of responsibility beyond her years, a seriousness that sits oddly on such young shoulders. "Hello, sweetheart, Mrs." Patterson says gently, coming around the counter with the warm smile that has greeted thousands of customers over the decades. "Can I help you find something special today?" The little girl looks up at her with those serious blue eyes, and Mrs. Patterson sees a determination there that surprises her. "I need to buy a birthday cake," the child says, her voice small but steady. "It's for my mama. She's turning 30 tomorrow, and I want to surprise her with something really beautiful." The words carry a weight that makes Mrs. Patterson's chest tighten slightly. There is something in the way this little girl says "mama" that speaks of deep love, and perhaps some worry too. "That's very sweet of you, dear," Mrs. Patterson responds, crouching down slightly so she can be closer to the child's eye level. "What's your name, honey?" "Emma. Emma Thompson. And my mama's name is Rebecca. She works really, really hard, and I saved up my allowance for 3 whole months to buy her the most beautiful cake in the whole world." Mrs. Patterson feels her heart squeeze. 3 months of allowance for a 6-year-old represents an enormous commitment, weeks and weeks of saying no to candy and small toys and all the little treats that make childhood sweet. "What kind of cake does your mama like best?" "Emma chocolate," Emma says immediately, her whole face lighting up. She loves chocolate more than anything. And she likes flowers too, because she always stops to smell the roses when we walk past the community garden. So maybe a cake with flowers on it would make her really happy. Emma reaches into her canvas bag with the reverence of someone handling something infinitely precious. She pulls out a wrinkled $5 bill and holds it up like a banner of victory. "Mrs., Patterson can see that this bill has been carefully folded and unfolded many times, touched with small fingers, perhaps counted over and over as Emma made sure her savings were still safe. "I have $5, Emma announces proudly. "I know that's a lot of money, so I should be able to get a really nice cake, right?" Mrs. Patterson's heart breaks and swells simultaneously. The cheapest cake in her display case costs $35, and that's for a simple round cake with basic frosting. A proper birthday cake with the kind of decorative flowers that Emma is imagining would run at least $75. The elaborate chocolate layer cake that Emma is now pointing to with sparkling eyes costs nearly $100 and was special ordered by a customer who will arrive to pick it up in less than 2 hours. "Let me see what we can do," Mrs. Patterson says, carefully buying herself time to think. "Why don't you look at all the cakes and tell me which one you think your mama would like the very best?" Emma presses her nose against the glass again, studying each option with the focused intensity of a jewelry appraiser examining precious gems. Her small finger traces patterns in the air as she follows the decorative swirls and flourishes. Finally, she points to the elaborate chocolate masterpiece, a 3-layer creation covered in rich, dark chocolate ganache, with delicate buttercream roses cascading down one side like a waterfall of flowers. That one, Emma breathes her voice full of awe. That one is absolutely perfect. It's chocolate like Mama loves, and it has flowers like the ones she stops to smell. And it's so beautiful that it looks like something from a fairy tale. She would love it so much that she might cry happy tears. Mrs. Patterson looks at the cake Emma has chosen, then back at the $5 bill in the little girl's hand. She is trying to find a gentle way to explain the reality of cake prices when the brass bell chimes again, announcing another customer. Nathan Brooks steps through the bakery door like a man moving through fog. At 37, he possesses the kind of sharp-featured handsomeness that photographs well in business magazines, but today his face carries the hollow look of someone who has forgotten what it feels like to truly smile. His dark hair is perfectly styled despite the long day, and his charcoal grey suit costs more than most people spend on rent. But none of these external markers of success can mask the bone-deep weariness in his dark eyes. He pauses just inside the doorway, struck by the warmth and life of this place. The golden afternoon light, the sweet fragrance, the gentle sounds of normal life happening around him, it all feels foreign after the sterile environment of corner offices and boardrooms where he spends most of his waking hours. For a moment, he simply stands there, breathing in the scent of vanilla and butter, and remembering what it was like to believe that life could be sweet. Nathan is the CEO of Brooks Development Corporation, a company he built from nothing into a multi-million-dollar enterprise that shapes city skylines and employs hundreds of people. 18 months ago, he was featured on the cover of Business Weekly with the headline, "The Golden Touch, How Nathan Brooks Turned Real Estate into an Empire." He has money, power, influence, and the respect of his peers. He also has an empty house, silent dinners, and a 5-year-old daughter who hasn't spoken a word since her mother died in a car accident 18 months ago. The irony is not lost on him that he can build magnificent structures that house thousands of people, yet he cannot seem to build a life that feels worth living. Success, he has learned, is not the same thing as happiness, and all the money in the world cannot buy back the sound of his daughter's laughter, or fill the crushing silence that has settled over his home like a heavy blanket. Nathan came to this bakery today because his therapist suggested he try to find small moments of comfort. Tiny sparks of the joy he remembers feeling before grief consumed everything good in his life. He has been driving around aimlessly after leaving the office early, something he never used to do, looking for anything that might remind him what it feels like to want something other than just making it through another day. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. His daughter Sophie sits at home with the nanny drawing pictures that she never shows to anyone, playing quietly with toys that no longer seem to bring her happiness. She used to be a chattering, giggling little girl who filled their house with songs and silly questions and the kind of beautiful chaos that comes from a child who feels completely safe in her world. Now she moves through their house like a ghost present, but not really there, and Nathan feels like he is failing her more completely with each passing day. The car accident took Maria in an instant, but it has been killing what remained of their family slowly, day by day, in ways that Nathan doesn't know how to fix. He has hired the best child psychologists, the most recommended grief counselors, and the most patient nannies, but nothing seems to reach through the wall of silence that Sophie has built around herself. She responds to direct questions with nods or shakes of her head, follows instructions without complaint, and goes through all the motions of childhood without any of its spontaneous joy. Nathan knows that part of the problem is his own inability to process his grief while trying to be strong for Sophie. He returned to work exactly 1 week after the funeral, throwing himself into business deals and construction projects with an intensity that impressed even his most workaholic colleagues. He convinced himself that staying busy was the same thing as moving forward, that providing financially for his daughter was the most important thing he could do for her. But late at night, in the silence of his too large house, Nathan knows that he is hiding from his pain instead of working through it. He knows that Sophie needs a father who can help her heal, not one who is drowning in his own unprocessed grief. He knows that the wall of silence she has built is probably a reflection of the emotional wall he has built around himself. He moves through the bakery slowly, letting the warmth of this place seep into his bones. Everything here speaks of family celebration connection, all the things that feel impossibly out of reach in his current life. He finds himself drawn to the display cases, not because he is particularly hungry, but because looking at these beautiful creations reminds him that some people still put love into their work, still create things meant to bring joy to others. Nathan notices the elderly woman behind the counter and the little girl with pigtails who is studying the cakes with such intense concentration. There is something about the child's posture that catches his attention, the way she holds herself with such serious purpose, the careful way she touches the glass, the obvious reverence she has for this place and these beautiful things. He has learned to notice children differently since Sophie's world went silent. He finds himself watching other kids at playgrounds and restaurants, trying to remember what normal childhood looks like, hoping to find some clue about how to reach his own daughter. This little girl's obvious joy and excitement creates a sharp contrast to Sophie's withdrawn quietness, and Nathan feels the familiar ache of wondering if his daughter will ever be that animated about anything again. He moves to stand politely behind the child waiting his turn and trying not to eavesdrop on her conversation with the bakery owner. But her voice carries, and he cannot help overhearing her talking about buying a birthday cake for her mama, about saving her allowance, about wanting to surprise someone she clearly loves very much. The simple, pure love in her voice creates an unexpected tightness in Nathan's chest. When was the last time anyone in his life spoke about him with that kind of uncomplicated affection? When was the last time he felt excited about surprising someone with a gift about making someone happy? Just because he loved them. He is lost in these melancholy thoughts. When the little girl suddenly turns around and looks directly at him with serious blue eyes that seem to see more than a child's eyes should be able to see. "Excuse me, sir," Emma says, her small voice cutting through Nathan's distracted thoughts like a clear bell. "Are you sad?" Nathan blinks, completely caught off guard by the directness of the question. Children, he has noticed, have a way of asking the questions that adults spend enormous amounts of energy avoiding. He looks down at this little girl with her crooked pigtails and serious expression, and for a moment he cannot find his voice. What he manages, finally crouching down so he can meet her eyes at her level. The movement is automatic, learned from his early years as Sophie's father, when he still knew how to talk to children naturally. "You look sad," Emma says matter-of-factly, tilting her head slightly as she studies his face. "My mama gets that look sometimes, when she's worried about money or when she misses my daddy who died. Are you missing someone too?" Mrs. Patterson starts to intervene, clearly embarrassed by her young customer's boldness. "I'm so sorry, sir. Children sometimes don't understand." But Nathan holds up a hand, his expression softening in a way that makes him look younger and less haunted. Something about this child's innocent perception has cut straight through all his carefully constructed defenses and reached the raw truth underneath. You know what he says quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "I am sad. I am missing someone." "How did you know?" "Your eyes," Emma says simply. "They look lonely, just like Mama's do sometimes when she thinks I'm not watching." Nathan lets out a breath that might be a laugh, or might be something closer to a sob. This 6-year-old has seen through him more clearly in 30 seconds than most adults manage in months of interaction. There is something both devastating and oddly comforting about being truly seen by someone, even if that someone is a child in a bakery who doesn't know anything about his life except that he carries sadness in his eyes. "You're very perceptive, Emma," he says. "What's your name, Emma Thompson? And you don't have to be sad alone, you know. That's what Mama always tells me when I miss Daddy." "I'm Nathan," he tells her, extending his hand with the same seriousness she has shown him. "Nice to meet you, Emma Thompson. What brings you to the bakery today?" "I'm buying a birthday cake for my mama," Emma says, immediately brightening as she holds up her $5 bill again. "She's turning 30 tomorrow, and I saved up my allowance for 3 whole months. I want to get her that chocolate cake with the flowers because chocolate is her very favorite. And she works so hard taking care of us, and she deserves something absolutely beautiful." Emma points again to the elaborate cake that costs nearly 20 times what she has saved. Nathan looks at the $5 bill in her small hand, then at the price tag on the cake she has chosen, and understanding crashes over him like a wave. This child has spent 3 months saving every penny of her allowance, denying herself small treats and toys, all so she could surprise her mother with something beautiful. The pure love behind this gesture, the selflessness of it, the heartbreaking gap between her intentions and her resources, it all combines to create something that feels like a fist closing around Nathan's heart. He thinks about Sophie, who used to plan elaborate surprises for Maria's birthday, making handmade cards and picking flowers from their garden and saving her own allowance to buy small gifts. He remembers the joy on both their faces during those celebrations, the way Maria would cry happy tears over a crooked drawing or a wilted dandelion bouquet because she understood the love behind the gift. "That's a beautiful cake," Nathan says, his voice steady, despite the emotions churning in his chest. "Your mom is very lucky to have such a thoughtful daughter." "The thing is," Emma says, her voice dropping to a whisper as she glances toward Mrs. Patterson, "I don't think $5 is enough. But it's all I have, and I want to get Mama something really special because she does everything for me, and she never gets anything nice for herself." Nathan looks at this child who has just articulated something he has forgotten how to feel, the desire to make someone else happy without expecting anything in return. He thinks about his empty house, his silent dinners, the way he has been moving through life like an actor playing a role he no longer understands. When was the last time he felt this kind of pure, uncomplicated love for another person? The answer comes to him immediately, and it hurts. The last time was with Maria and Sophie, before tragedy stole away his ability to feel anything other than grief and responsibility. "Emma," he says slowly, an idea beginning to form. "You know what? today is actually my birthday too. Emma's eyes widen with surprise and delight. Really, today is your birthday? Really? Nathan confirms, though he is lying. His birthday is actually next month, but looking at this child's hopeful face, he knows that this small deception serves a greater truth. I turned 37 today, and I was just thinking on my way here that I didn't have anyone to celebrate with. I'd probably just go home to my empty house and have a quiet evening alone. But you've given me an idea. What kind of idea? Emma asks, bouncing slightly on her toes with excitement. What if we became birthday cake partners? Nathan suggests, pulling out his wallet. You take that beautiful cake for your mama's birthday tomorrow, and I'll consider it my birthday cake too. We can share it even though we'll be in different places. What do you think? Emma's face scrunches up with concern. But that's your birthday cake. You should have it for your party. I think Nathan says, gently kneeling fully on the bakery floor now, so they are eye to eye, that giving your mama a beautiful birthday cake would make me happier than anything else I could do for my birthday. It would make this day special for me to know that I helped make someone else's day special. Would that be okay with you? Emma studies his face with the intense concentration she had directed toward the cakes, as if trying to determine whether this offer is real and whether she can trust it. Finally, she nods slowly. Okay, but I should still pay my part. I have $5. You're absolutely right, Nathan agrees solemnly. We're partners, so we both contribute. You give me your $5 and I'll add the rest. Deal. He holds out his hand and Emma shakes it with the gravity of someone signing an important business contract. She carefully hands over her $5 bill, which Nathan accepts with the same reverence she has shown it. Mrs. Patterson, who has been watching this entire exchange, with tears gathering in her eyes, steps forward as Nathan approaches the counter with his credit card. I'd like to purchase that chocolate cake with the buttercream flowers, Nathan says quietly. And please add whatever $5 would buy, maybe some cookies or cupcakes that Emma can take as her contribution to the order. Mrs. Patterson nods, her voice slightly hoarse with emotion. I'll box up some of our fresh chocolate chip cookies. They'll be from Emma's part of the purchase. As Mrs. Patterson begins carefully lifting the elaborate cake from the display case, Emma tugs on Nathan's sleeve. Mr. Nathan, she says, her small voice filled with curiosity. Why don't you have anyone to celebrate your birthday with? Don't you have a family? Nathan's breath catches. This question, asked with such innocent directness, cuts deeper than any business rival's insult or any therapist's gentle probing. He looks down at this child, who has shown him more genuine concern in 10 minutes than he has received from anyone in months. I do have a family, he says slowly. I have a little girl named Sophie. She's about your age. But we're both very sad right now because Sophie's mama died in a car accident and we don't know how to be happy anymore. Emma's face immediately fills with understanding and sympathy. That's really sad, she says. My daddy died when I was 3. I miss him every day, but Mama says he would want us to still find reasons to smile. Maybe your Sophie needs to remember how to smile too. Maybe she does. Nathan agrees, his throat tight. Maybe we both do. The afternoon light shifts as clouds move across the sun, casting the bakery in a softer, more intimate glow. Nathan finds himself sitting across from Emma at one of the small cafe tables, while Mrs. Patterson carefully boxes their shared birthday cake. The little girl swings her legs from the chair that is too high for her, her canvas bag, now empty but still clutched against her chest like a security blanket. Nathan watches Emma's animated face as she talks about her plans for tomorrow's surprise, and something inside him that has been frozen solid for 18 months begins to crack. Not break, not heal, but simply crack enough to let in the possibility that connection with another human being might still be possible for him. So you live just with your mama? Nathan asks gently, trying to understand this child's world. Yes, just me and Mama, Emma confirms. We have a little apartment about 4 blocks from here. It's not very big, but Mama says it's perfect for 2 people who love each other. She has pictures of Daddy all around, so I can remember what he looked like, and she tells me stories about him, so I know he loved me, even though I can't remember him very much. The matter-of-fact way Emma discusses her father's death and her mother's struggles strikes Nathan as both heartbreaking and admirable. This child has learned to accept loss as part of life while still maintaining hope and joy. It's a lesson Nathan realizes he has failed to learn despite being 31 years older than she is. "What kind of work does your mama do?" Nathan asks. "She works at 2 different places," Emma explains, counting on her small fingers. During the day, she serves food at Murphy's Diner, and at night, she cleans offices downtown. She says she works hard so we can have everything we need, but sometimes I hear her crying in her room when she thinks I'm asleep. Nathan feels his chest tighten. This description of Rebecca Thompson paints a picture of a young woman struggling to build a life for herself and her daughter in the wake of devastating loss. Working 2 jobs, probably barely making ends meet, trying to hold everything together while processing her own grief. It reminds him uncomfortably of his own situation, except that Rebecca Thompson is doing it without the cushion of wealth and corporate success. She is facing the same emotional challenges he is, plus financial stress and physical exhaustion that he cannot imagine. "That must be very hard for both of you," Nathan says carefully. Sometimes Emma agrees, but Mama says that hard doesn't mean impossible, and that we have each other, so we're not really alone. She says Daddy is watching over us from heaven, and that he would be proud of how strong we're being. The simple faith in Emma's words creates a sharp contrast to Nathan's own struggle with loss. He has not found any comfort in thoughts of Maria watching over them from somewhere beyond death. Instead, her absence feels like a constant ache, a reminder of everything he has failed to protect and preserve. But listening to Emma talk about her father's continued presence in their lives, Nathan begins to wonder if his approach to grief has been missing something essential. Perhaps healing doesn't require forgetting or moving on, but rather finding a way to carry love forward, even after the person you love is gone. Emma, Nathan says, suddenly struck by an idea that feels both impulsive and absolutely right. "You mentioned that you don't want me to be alone on my birthday. What if I asked you the same thing? What if you and your mama don't have to celebrate her birthday alone either?" "What do you mean?" Emma asks, tilting her head. Well, Nathan says, his heart beating faster as the idea takes shape. "You've become my birthday cake partner today. What if we became birthday partners too? What if I joined you and your mama for her birthday celebration tomorrow? I could bring ice cream to go with the cake, and maybe we could all celebrate together." Emma's face lights up like sunshine breaking through clouds. "You want to come to Mama's birthday party? I would love to come to your mama's birthday party." Nathan confirms, and as he says the words, he realizes they are completely true. More than anything else he can imagine doing tomorrow evening, he wants to be part of this little girl's loving gesture toward her mother. He wants to witness the joy on Rebecca Thompson's face when she sees the beautiful cake her daughter saved 3 months to buy. But more than that, he wants to remember what it feels like to be part of a celebration, part of a family moment, where love is given freely and happiness is shared without calculation or reservation. But Emma says her excitement dimming slightly with concern. What if Mama says no? She gets nervous around new people sometimes, especially people she doesn't know very well. Nathan recognizes the wisdom in Emma's caution. Rebecca Thompson, as a single mother, would naturally be protective of her daughter and wary of strangers who attempt to insert themselves into their lives. The fact that he is clearly wealthy, based on his clothes and his ability to buy an expensive cake without hesitation, might make her even more suspicious of his motives. "That's very smart thinking," Emma Nathan says. "Your mama is right to be careful about new people. How about this? I'll give you my phone number and you can ask your mama to call me if she thinks it would be okay for me to come to the party. If she says no, I'll understand completely. The most important thing is that you surprise her with the beautiful cake." "Okay," Emma agrees, though Nathan can see that she is already planning how to convince her mother to say yes. Mrs. Patterson approaches their table with several boxes stacked carefully in her arms. The largest box, Nathan knows, contains the elaborate chocolate cake that will serve as the centerpiece of tomorrow's celebration. The smaller boxes hold the cookies that Emma's $5 helped purchase. "Here we are," Mrs. Patterson says warmly, setting the boxes on the table. "One birthday cake for 2 birthday partners, plus chocolate chip cookies fresh from the oven this morning." Nathan pulls a business card from his wallet and hands it to Emma. "This has my phone number on it," he explains. "You give this to your mama and ask her to call me tonight if it's okay for me to join the party tomorrow. If I don't hear from her, I'll know that maybe another time would be better, and that's perfectly fine." Emma takes the card and studies it carefully, running her small fingers over the embossed letters of Nathan's name and company. She cannot read all the words, but she seems to understand that this represents something important and official. "What should I tell her about you?" Emma asks. "She's going to want to know who you are and why you want to come to our party." Nathan considers this question carefully. He could mention his company, his wealth, his business success. But he suspects that information would make Rebecca Thompson more wary rather than less. Instead, he decides to offer the simple truth. "Tell her that you met me in the bakery, and I was sad because I was alone on my birthday. Tell her that you helped me remember what it feels like to want to make someone else happy. And tell her that your kindness today means more to me than anything that's happened in a very long time." Emma nods solemnly as if committing these words to memory. "I'll tell her exactly that she promises." Nathan stands and helps Emma gather the boxes, making sure she can carry them safely. The largest box is awkward for her small arms, so he offers to help her carry everything home. "I live right down the street," Emma says. "It's not far. But if you want to walk with me to make sure I don't drop Mama, that would be really nice." The walk to Emma's apartment building takes them through a neighborhood that Nathan recognizes as working class but well maintained. Small houses and low apartment buildings line the streets, most with tiny front gardens and children's toys scattered on porches. It's the kind of neighborhood where people know their neighbors' names and where families stretch modest incomes to create comfortable homes. Emma chatters happily as they walk, pointing out the community garden, where her mama stops to smell the roses, the playground, where they come on weekends when mama doesn't have to work, the corner store where they buy groceries every Tuesday evening. Nathan finds himself seeing his own city differently through Emma's eyes. He spends most of his time in the gleaming downtown core, where his office building rises 40 stories above street level, or in the wealthy suburban enclave, where his house sits on 2 acres of manicured grounds. This quieter, more intimate part of the city feels like a different world entirely. They stop in front of a modest 3-story apartment building with a red brick facade and white-painted fire escapes. Emma leads him up a few steps to the front door, balancing her boxes carefully as she searches in her canvas bag for her key. "This is where we live," she announces proudly. "Apartment 2B. The lady downstairs is Mrs. Rodriguez, and she sometimes gives me cookies when Mama is working late. And the family upstairs has twin babies who cry a lot, but Mama says that's just what babies do, and we should be patient with them." Nathan helps Emma maneuver the boxes through the front door and up 1 flight of stairs to a hallway painted pale yellow with fluorescent lights overhead. As Emma fumbles with her key at apartment 2B, the door opens to reveal a young woman with the same blonde hair and blue eyes as her daughter. Rebecca Thompson looks exactly as Nathan expected, and nothing like he expected. She has Emma's delicate features and serious expression, but there are lines around her eyes that speak of worry and exhaustion. She wears scrubs, probably from her day job at the diner, and her hair is pulled back in a ponytail that has grown messy over the course of a long day. Rebecca says, relief evident in her voice. "I was starting to worry about where you—" She stops mid-sentence when she notices Nathan standing behind her daughter, a well-dressed stranger holding bakery boxes in her apartment building hallway. Mama Emma exclaims, bouncing on her toes with excitement. "I got your birthday cake, and I made a new friend who helped me. And his name is Mr. Nathan, and today is his birthday too, so we're birthday cake partners." Rebecca Thompson's expression shifts rapidly from relief to confusion to the carefully controlled wariness of a single mother encountering an unexpected stranger in her daughter's company. Her eyes move from Nathan's expensive suit to the bakery boxes to Emma's animated face, clearly trying to piece together what has happened and whether her daughter is safe. Nathan recognizes the protective instinct immediately and respects it. He knows that his presence here requires explanation, and he knows that Rebecca has every right to be suspicious of his motives. "Mrs. Thompson," Nathan says carefully, stepping back slightly to give her space. "I'm Nathan Brooks. I met Emma at Rosewood Bakery about an hour ago. I want to assure you that I didn't approach your daughter. We simply happened to be there at the same time, and she noticed that I was having a difficult day." Rebecca's posture remains tense, but she opens the door wider and gestures for them to come inside. Her apartment is small but clean and warm, decorated with photographs and Emma's artwork, and the kind of careful touches that transform a modest space into a home. Nathan notices immediately that while everything is neat and well-maintained, the furniture shows signs of wear, and the decorations are handmade rather than purchased. Emma sets her boxes on the small kitchen table and immediately launches into the story of their meeting, her words tumbling over each other in her excitement to share every detail. She describes Nathan's sadness, their conversation about birthdays and loneliness, the partnership they formed to buy the cake, and the invitation she extended for him to join tomorrow's celebration. Rebecca listens to this account while studying Nathan's face, clearly trying to determine whether this stranger represents a threat or simply an unusual encounter. Nathan can see her mind working, processing the information, and trying to make sense of a situation that probably seems too coincidental to be entirely innocent. "I'm sorry," Rebecca says when Emma finishes her story. "This is all a bit overwhelming. You're saying that you helped my daughter buy an expensive cake, and now you want to come to a birthday party for someone you've never met?" Nathan understands her skepticism completely. From her perspective, this situation must seem at best strange, and at worst potentially dangerous. "I know how this must look," Nathan says honestly. "A stranger inserting himself into your family's celebration. I want you to understand that Emma's invitation was entirely her idea, and I have no intention of imposing myself if you're not comfortable with it." He reaches into his jacket and pulls out his business card, the same one he gave to Emma. "This has my contact information, including my office number. You can look me up online if you want to verify that I am who I say I am. I run a development company downtown." Rebecca takes the card and glances at it, her eyebrows rising slightly when she sees the company name. Nathan can see the moment when she recognizes his business. Brooks Development Corporation has been featured in local news coverage of several major construction projects around the city. But Nathan continues, "My business success isn't the reason I'm here. I'm here because your daughter saw that I was lonely, and instead of ignoring that or walking away from it, she decided to include me. She taught me something important today about kindness and connection that I had forgotten how to feel." Rebecca's expression softens slightly, though she remains cautious. "Emma has always been like that," she says quietly. "She notices when people are hurting and she wants to help. Sometimes I worry that she's too trusting." "Today her trust was well placed," Nathan assures her. "And I hope you'll consider allowing me to join your celebration tomorrow, because I would very much like the chance to be part of something joyful again." The vulnerability in Nathan's voice seems to cut through Rebecca's defenses. She looks at him more carefully and Nathan has the sense that she is seeing past his expensive clothes and successful demeanor to the grief and loneliness underneath. "Emma mentioned that you were sad," Rebecca says. "She said you were missing someone." Nathan takes a deep breath. "My wife died in a car accident 18 months ago. I have a 5-year-old daughter who hasn't spoken since the day we lost her mother. We're both struggling to figure out how to live without her, and I'm failing more often than I'm succeeding." The admission hangs in the air between them, raw and honest. Rebecca's expression changes completely, the wariness replaced by understanding and sympathy. "I'm so sorry," she says, her voice thick with emotion. "That's a terrible loss. Emma's father died 4 years ago from cancer, and I know how hard it is to try to hold everything together when your world falls apart." Nathan feels a connection form between them, the recognition of shared experience that creates instant understanding. Both of them know what it means to lose a partner, to become a single parent overnight, to carry the weight of another person's grief while trying to process their own. "It changes everything, doesn't it?" Nathan says quietly. "Not just the practical things, but the way you see the world, the way you move through each day." "Yes," Rebecca agrees. "People try to help, but unless they've been through it themselves, they don't really understand. They think you should be getting better according to some timeline, but grief doesn't work that way." Emma, who has been listening to this conversation with the serious attention that children bring to adult discussions of important things, suddenly speaks up. "Mama," she says, touching Rebecca's hand, "Mr. Nathan is sad, just like we were sad when Daddy died. Maybe we can help him remember how to be happy, like Mrs. Rodriguez helped us when you used to cry every night." Both adults look at this little girl who has once again articulated something profound with simple, direct honesty. Rebecca's eyes fill with tears, and Nathan has to clear his throat before he can speak. "Emma," Rebecca says gently, "I think Mr. Nathan might need different kinds of help than we can give. But Mama," Emma persists, "you always say that when people are hurting we should try to include them, not leave them alone. And Mr. Nathan helped me get your beautiful birthday cake, so he's already part of our family celebration." Nathan watches this exchange and feels something he hasn't experienced in 18 months, the desire to be part of something larger than his own grief. Emma's innocent wisdom and Rebecca's careful kindness create a combination that feels like coming home after a long, cold journey. "Mrs. Thompson," Nathan says quietly, "I don't want to intrude on your family time, but if you would be willing to have me, I would be honored to join your celebration tomorrow. I'll bring ice cream and anything else you might need. And if at any point you feel uncomfortable, I'll leave immediately." Rebecca looks at Emma's hopeful face, then back at Nathan's earnest expression. Nathan can see her making a decision, weighing caution against compassion and choosing to trust her daughter's instincts. "All right," she says finally. "Tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. But I should warn you it won't be fancy. We're planning to have cake and ice cream here in the apartment. Nothing elaborate." "That sounds perfect," Nathan says, meaning it completely. Exactly perfect. The next evening, Nathan stands outside the red brick apartment building holding more items than he originally planned to bring. In addition to the ice cream, he promised he carries a bouquet of flowers for Rebecca, a wrapped gift for Emma that he spent an hour choosing, and a bottle of sparkling cider because he wanted to contribute something special to the celebration. He has changed from his usual business attire into dark jeans and a casual button-down shirt, wanting to dress appropriately for an intimate family gathering rather than looking like he stepped out of a boardroom. Even so, he feels nervous in a way that he hasn't experienced since he was a teenager asking someone to prom. This nervousness has nothing to do with romantic interest, though he acknowledges that Rebecca Thompson is a beautiful woman. Instead, it stems from the knowledge that he is about to step into a world of warmth and connection that he has been shut out of, partly by circumstance, partly by his own choices for far too long. Nathan has spent the day thinking about Emma's question from yesterday. Why don't you have anyone to celebrate your birthday with? The question forced him to examine how completely he has isolated himself since Maria's death, how thoroughly he has prioritized work over relationships and professional success over personal connection. He built Brooks Development Corporation from nothing, working 18-hour days and sacrificing everything else for the sake of business growth. When Maria was alive, she balanced his workaholic tendencies, insisted on family dinners and weekend activities and social connections that kept them grounded in normal life. After she died, Nathan threw himself even more completely into work, using it as both an escape from grief and a way to provide financially for Sophie. But somewhere in that process, he lost touch with friends who tried to support him. He stopped accepting dinner invitations, stopped returning phone calls, stopped participating in the community activities that had once brought him joy. He convinced himself that he was being strong and responsible, but Emma's innocent question revealed the truth: he had built a successful business and a lonely life. Nathan climbs the stairs to apartment 2B and takes a deep breath before knocking. The door opens immediately, as if Emma has been watching for him through the window. "Mr. Nathan," Emma exclaims, throwing her arms around his legs in a hug that nearly knocks him off balance. "You came. I was hoping you would really come. I told you I would," Nathan says, returning her hug with one arm while balancing the flowers and gifts with the other. "I always keep my promises to my birthday cake partners." Emma giggles and leads him into the apartment, where Nathan immediately notices the transformation. The small space has been decorated with handmade birthday banners created from construction paper and crayons. Balloons clearly purchased from the dollar store, but no less festive for their modest origin, float from the backs of chairs. The table has been set with the apartment's best dishes and cloth napkins that look like they might be reserved for special occasions. Rebecca emerges from the kitchen wearing a simple blue dress that brings out her eyes, her blonde hair loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back in the practical ponytail she wore yesterday. She looks nervous but pleased, and Nathan is struck by how young she appears when she smiles genuinely. "Thank you for coming," Rebecca says, accepting the flowers with surprise and delight. "These are beautiful. You really didn't need to bring anything." "I wanted to contribute to the celebration," Nathan replies. "And I brought something for Emma too, if that's all right." Emma's eyes widen when she sees the wrapped package. "A present for me. But it's not my birthday. Special occasions are for sharing," Nathan explains, offering her the gift. "Besides, you're the one who made this celebration possible by being so kind to a stranger in a bakery." Emma tears open the wrapping paper to reveal a beautiful hardcover collection of fairy tales with illustrations that look like they were painted with watercolors. Her reaction is everything Nathan hoped for: pure delight and wonder as she carefully turns the pages. "It's the most beautiful book I've ever seen," Emma breathes. "Look, Mama, look at all the pictures." Rebecca examines the book over Emma's shoulder, and Nathan sees her eyes widen slightly when she notices the price tag that Emma hasn't spotted. "It's an expensive edition from the kind of bookstore that specializes in high-quality children's literature." "This is too much," Rebecca says quietly to Nathan. "Really, you don't need to." "I wanted to." Nathan interrupts gently. Emma loves stories, and this seemed like something she might enjoy. Besides, birthday cake partners should exchange gifts. The dinner that follows is unlike anything Nathan has experienced in 18 months. Rebecca serves homemade spaghetti with meat sauce, garlic bread, and salad. Simple food prepared with care and presented with pride. Emma chatters constantly, telling Nathan about her school, her favorite teachers, her best friend who moved away last month, and her plans to learn to ride a bicycle without training wheels. Nathan finds himself relaxing in a way he had forgotten was possible. There are no business calls to answer, no urgent emails to check, no deals to negotiate, or problems to solve. There is only this warm apartment filled with the sound of Emma's laughter and the gentle conversation of three people sharing a meal together. As they eat, Rebecca shares more about her life with the same openness that Emma showed yesterday. She talks about her job at the diner, the regular customers who have become like extended family, the night cleaning job that pays better but keeps her away from Emma in the evenings. She describes her dreams of returning to nursing school someday, when she has saved enough money and when Emma is old enough not to need constant supervision. Nathan shares stories about his early days building his company, the mistakes he made, and the lessons he learned, but he finds himself talking more about the people he worked with than the deals he closed. He describes his friendship with his business partner, the crew foreman who taught him about construction, the families whose lives were changed by the affordable housing projects his company developed. For the first time in months, Nathan remembers what it was like to think of his work as something that connected him to other people rather than something that isolated him from them. When it comes time for the birthday cake, Emma insists on lighting the candles herself and leading them in singing Happy Birthday to Rebecca. Nathan watches Rebecca's face as her daughter presents the elaborate chocolate masterpiece, and he sees tears of joy in her eyes, not because the cake is expensive, but because she understands the love and sacrifice it represents. "Make a wish, Mama," Emma instructs solemnly. Rebecca closes her eyes for a moment, and Nathan wonders what she wishes for. Financial security. More time with her daughter. A chance to finish her education. When she opens her eyes and blows out the candles, she looks directly at Nathan with an expression that suggests her wish might have something to do with the unexpected guest at her table. The evening stretches on longer than any of them expected. They eat cake and ice cream while Emma reads aloud from her new book of fairy tales, her small voice dramatic as she voices different characters. They play simple card games that Emma teaches Nathan, and they look through photo albums that Rebecca brings out to show him pictures of Emma as a baby and her late husband during happier times. Nathan realizes that he has not thought about work, about his empty house, or about his own grief for more than 3 hours. Instead, he has been completely present in this moment, engaged with these people who have welcomed him into their lives without asking for anything in return, except his genuine participation in their joy. When it finally comes time to leave, Emma hugs Nathan goodbye with the same enthusiasm she showed when he arrived. "Thank you for being my birthday cake partner," she says seriously. "And thank you for helping Mama smile so much tonight. She doesn't get to smile enough because she's always working or worried about money." "Thank you for inviting me, Emma," Nathan replies, kneeling down to her level one more time. "This has been the best birthday celebration I've had in a very long time." "It wasn't even your real birthday," Emma points out with a grin. "It felt like my real birthday," Nathan says, honestly. Sometimes the best celebrations are the ones you don't expect. As Nathan walks back to his car, he carries with him the warmth of the evening and the knowledge that he has been given something precious, a reminder of what it feels like to be part of a family, even temporarily. He has also been given something else, though he doesn't fully recognize it yet, the beginning of a chance to build connections that might fill some of the emptiness in his own life, while contributing something meaningful to theirs. Nathan sits in his car for a full 5 minutes after arriving at Rebecca's apartment building, his hands gripping the steering wheel as he tries to understand the nervous energy coursing through his system. He has negotiated multi-million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat as presented to rooms full of hostile investors, with complete confidence has made decisions that affected hundreds of jobs without hesitation. But the prospect of joining a small family celebration in a modest apartment has him feeling like a teenager on a first date. The difference, he realizes, is that business success requires competence and strategy, while family connection requires vulnerability and authenticity, qualities he has not accessed in 18 months. At work, he knows exactly who he is and what role he plays. But in this context, he is uncertain about everything: how to act, what to say, whether his presence will enhance or disrupt the intimacy that Rebecca and Emma share. Nathan checks his reflection in the rearview mirror, running a hand through his hair that he has left unstyled for once. The casual clothes feel strange on his body after months of wearing suits every day, but he wants to signal that he understands this is not a business meeting. This is something much more important and much more fragile. He climbs the stairs to apartment 2B carrying the flowers, ice cream, and gift. And before he can knock, the door swings open to reveal Emma, bouncing on her toes with barely contained excitement. "Mr. Nathan." "You're here. I've been watching out the window for your car, and I saw you sitting there for a really long time. Were you nervous too?" Emma's directness makes Nathan smile, despite his anxiety. "Two?" he asks. "Were you nervous?" "Yes," Emma admits solemnly, "because I really wanted tonight to be perfect for Mama's birthday, and I wasn't sure if having a party with 3 people instead of just 2 would feel different or strange." "How do you feel now?" Nathan asks, curious about this child's emotional intelligence. "Now I feel excited," Emma says, her face brightening. "Because you're really here, and Mama made her special spaghetti, and we get to eat the beautiful birthday cake together just like we planned." The apartment smells like garlic and tomatoes and fresh bread aromas that immediately transport Nathan back to his childhood, when his own mother would spend afternoons cooking elaborate meals for special occasions. He had forgotten that homes could smell like this, could feel this warm and alive with anticipation. Rebecca appears in the kitchen doorway, and Nathan is struck once again by how different she looks when she smiles genuinely. Yesterday at the bakery, and when he dropped off Emma, she had been polite, but guarded her expression careful and controlled. Tonight, in her own space, celebrating her daughter's loving gesture, she radiates a warmth that transforms her entire appearance. "Welcome," she says, accepting the flowers with surprise that seems genuine. "These are lovely, Nathan. You really shouldn't have brought anything except yourself." "I wanted to contribute somehow," Nathan replies, offering Emma her gift. "And I thought Emma might enjoy something to commemorate her successful mission yesterday." The wrapped book delights Emma exactly as Nathan hoped it would. She examines every page with the concentrated attention of someone who understands that books are precious, that stories are treasures to be savored rather than consumed quickly. Her reaction reminds Nathan of Sophie's relationship with books before the accident, the way she used to lose herself completely in picture books and fairy tales. Dinner exceeds every expectation Nathan had formed. The food is simple but delicious, prepared with the kind of care that cannot be bought at expensive restaurants. More importantly, the conversation flows naturally, despite the unusual circumstances that brought them together. Emma dominates much of the discussion, sharing stories about school and friends and neighborhood adventures with the unstoppable enthusiasm of a 6-year-old who finally has a captive audience for all her accumulated observations about life. But Nathan finds himself equally engaged when Rebecca talks about her work at the diner, describing regular customers who have become part of her extended community, and sharing the small victories and challenges of single parenthood. Nathan reciprocates by talking about his early years, building his company, but he finds himself focusing on different aspects than he would in a business context. Instead of discussing profit margins and market strategies, he talks about the satisfaction of seeing families move into homes. His company built the relationships he developed with construction workers and architects, the sense of purpose he felt when his work contributed to improving neighborhoods. As the meal progresses, Nathan realizes that he has not checked his phone once, has not thought about pending deals or tomorrow's meetings, or any of the professional concerns that usually dominate his mental space. Instead, he is completely present in this moment, engaged with these people who have invited him into their celebration without expecting anything from him except his genuine participation. The birthday cake ceremony becomes a moment of pure magic. Emma insists on dimming the lights before bringing out the elaborate chocolate creation that started their friendship. In the soft glow of 30 candles, Rebecca's face shows wonder and gratitude that has nothing to do with the cake's monetary value and everything to do with understanding the love and sacrifice it represents. When Rebecca closes her eyes to make her wish, Nathan finds himself hoping that whatever she is wishing for will come true. When she opens her eyes and blows out the candles, she looks directly at him with an expression that suggests her wish might involve the unexpected connection that has formed between them. The cake tastes even better than it looks, rich, decadent, perfectly balanced between sweet and bitter. But Nathan knows that the flavor itself is less important than the meaning it carries, the symbol of Emma's determination to give her mother something beautiful, the representation of love expressed through sacrifice and creativity. Emma chatters about the cake while they eat, describing her weeks of planning and saving, her careful consideration of different options, her absolute certainty that chocolate was the right choice. Nathan watches Rebecca's face as she listens to her daughter's account, seeing the mixture of pride and overwhelming love that defines her relationship with Emma. This is what family looks like, Nathan realizes. Not the formal dinner parties he and Maria used to host for business associates, not the expensive restaurant meals they shared during their courtship, but this 3 people around a small table sharing food prepared with love, celebrating connections that matter more than anything money can buy. After dinner, Emma insists on showing Nathan her most treasured possessions, the photo albums that document her short life and preserve memories of the father she barely remembers. Nathan finds himself looking at pictures of a tall, gentle-looking man with Emma's eyes and Rebecca's smile, a man who clearly adored his wife and daughter and whose absence has shaped everything that followed his death. "There's Daddy teaching me to ride my tricycle," Emma explains, pointing to a photo that shows a man crouched behind a small bicycle, his hand steadying Emma's wobbly progress. "And there's Daddy and Mama at their wedding. Mama was the most beautiful bride in the whole world." Nathan studies the wedding photo, seeing Rebecca in a simple white dress, glowing with happiness as she looks at her new husband. The love between them is evident even in the still photograph, and Nathan feels a complex mixture of sadness for what they lost and gratitude that they had it even briefly. "Do you have pictures of your wife?" Emma asks, with the directness that has characterized all their interactions. Nathan hesitates. He carries one photo of Maria in his wallet, but he has not looked at it in months, cannot remember the last time he spoke about her to anyone except his therapist. Talking about Maria feels like opening a door he has worked very hard to keep closed. But Emma's innocent question and the intimacy of this moment make deflection impossible. Nathan pulls out his wallet and shows them the small photograph he has carried since their honeymoon 5 years ago. It shows Maria laughing at something off-camera, her dark hair caught by ocean wind, her face radiant with the kind of happiness that comes from being completely comfortable with yourself and your life. "She was beautiful," Rebecca says softly, studying the photo with the careful attention of someone who understands loss intimately. What was she like? Nathan finds himself talking about Maria in a way he has not been able to do since her death. Instead of focusing on her illness, or the accident, or the crushing weight of her absence, he describes her personality, her terrible sense of direction that led them on countless unplanned adventures, her ability to make friends with strangers in grocery store lines, her insistence on reading bedtime stories to Sophie in silly voices that made them both dissolve into giggles. "She sounds wonderful," Rebecca says. When Nathan finishes, "Sophie is lucky to have had her as a mother, even if it wasn't for as long as you all deserved." The acknowledgement of his loss without attempts to minimize or fix it means more to Nathan than any of the well-meaning advice he has received from friends and colleagues over the past 18 months. Rebecca understands that some grief cannot be solved, only carried with grace. As the evening progresses and Emma becomes drowsy from excitement and sugar, the conversation between Nathan and Rebecca shifts to more serious topics. Emma curls up on the couch with her new book, reading quietly to herself, While the adults continue talking at the kitchen table, their voices lowered to accommodate her need for quiet. Nathan finds himself sharing details about his life that he has not discussed with anyone in months. He describes the crushing responsibility of single parenthood when he feels completely unprepared for it, the guilt he carries about spending so much time at work when Sophie clearly needs more emotional support, the way grief has made him feel like a stranger in his own life. I keep thinking that if I can just work hard enough, make enough money, provide enough financial security somehow, that will be enough to make up for everything she's lost, Nathan admits. But I'm starting to realize that Sophie doesn't need another college fund or a bigger house or expensive toys. She needs a father who knows how to help her heal. Rebecca nods with understanding that comes from her own experience navigating loss and single parenthood simultaneously. It's so hard to know what the right thing is when you're trying to be everything to someone, she says. After Tom died, I convinced myself that keeping busy was the same thing as coping. I worked as many hours as possible, kept Emma's schedule packed with activities, anything to avoid sitting still long enough to really feel how much we'd lost. What changed, Nathan asks. Emma got sick with pneumonia about a year after Tom died. Rebecca explains. Nothing serious, but she needed me to just sit with her to be present instead of busy. And I realized that all my frantic activity had been about managing my own anxiety, not about what she actually needed from me. Nathan recognizes this pattern in his own behavior. How did you find balance? Slowly, Rebecca says with a rueful smile, and with a lot of help from people like Mrs. Rodriguez downstairs who would watch Emma when I had to work late, and who taught me that accepting help isn't the same thing as failing. Nathan thinks about his own resistance to accepting support from friends and colleagues who offered assistance after Maria's death. He had been determined to prove that he could handle everything alone, that successful men don't need help managing their personal lives. I've been afraid to let anyone help with Sophie, Nathan admits, partly because I don't want to burden anyone else with our problems, but partly because I'm scared that if I let someone else take care of her, she might prefer them to me. Rebecca's expression fills with compassion. That's the terror every single parent lives with, she says. The fear that you're not enough, that someone else could do better, that your child might be happier somewhere else. Do you still feel that way? Nathan asks. Sometimes Rebecca acknowledges honestly. But Emma reminds me regularly that what she needs most is just me, imperfect, and struggling and doing my best. Children are more resilient than we give them credit for, and they're usually more patient with our mistakes than we are with ourselves. Nathan finds enormous comfort in Rebecca's honesty about her own struggles and uncertainties. For 18 months he has felt like the only parent in the world who doesn't know what he's doing, who makes decisions based on fear rather than wisdom. Can I ask you something? Rebecca says after a pause. What's Sophie like when she's comfortable? Nathan's throat tightens as he thinks about his daughter before the accident. She used to be fearless, he says slowly. She would climb to the top of playground equipment that made me nervous, strike up conversations with strangers at the grocery store, sing made-up songs at the top of her lungs, while we drove around running errands. Rebecca smiles at this description. She sounds like Emma, confident and social and full of joy. That's exactly what she was like, Nathan confirms. And now she's none of those things. She follows instructions without complaining, sits quietly. Wherever I put her eats, whatever I give her without expressing preferences. It's like she's decided that taking up space or having opinions might be dangerous. Trauma does that, Rebecca says gently. After Tom died, Emma stopped asking for things she wanted, stopped complaining about things she didn't like. It took me a while to realize that she was trying to protect me from any additional stress. How did you help her feel safe enough to be herself again? I started small, Rebecca explains. I would offer her choices about little things, what color cup she wanted for dinner, which book she wanted to read before bed, and I made it clear that there were no wrong answers, that her preferences mattered to me. Nathan makes mental notes about these suggestions, desperate for concrete strategies he can try with Sophie. I also had to work on my own healing. Rebecca continues. Children mirror our emotional state more than we realize. Emma couldn't feel safe expressing herself until I felt safe letting her be fully herself. This observation hits Nathan with uncomfortable accuracy. He has been so focused on maintaining control and avoiding additional loss that he has probably communicated to Sophie that emotions are dangerous, that needs are burdens, that the safest way to navigate their changed world is to become as invisible as possible. The conversation is interrupted by Emma, who appears beside their table, rubbing her eyes sleepily. "Mama, I'm tired, but I don't want Mr. Nathan to leave yet," she says, climbing into Rebecca's lap, despite being almost too big for such comfort. "What if Mr. Nathan helps tuck you in tonight?" Rebecca suggests. "Then you can say goodnight properly before he goes home." Emma perks up at this suggestion, and Nathan finds himself agreeing before he fully processes what he has committed to. He follows Emma to her small bedroom, which is decorated with her artwork and stuffed animals and a bookshelf filled with library books. The bedtime routine is simple but meaningful. Emma brushes her teeth while Nathan reads the first story from her new book aloud. Rebecca appears with a glass of water and joins them for the final pages. When they finish the story, Emma insists that both adults kiss her forehead goodnight. "Thank you for the best birthday party ever," Emma tells Nathan solemnly. "And thank you for being Mama's friend. She needs more friends who make her smile." Nathan's chest tightens with emotion. "Thank you for inviting me, Emma. You taught me something important about kindness today." As they leave Emma's room, Nathan realizes that this simple bedtime routine has shown him something he had forgotten: how natural and meaningful it can be to care for a child who trusts you. How satisfying it is to be part of creating safety and comfort for someone vulnerable. Standing in Rebecca's small living room as the evening winds down, Nathan feels reluctant to return to his empty house and silent routine. The warmth and connection of the past few hours have reminded him what it feels like to be part of something larger than his own problems, and the prospect of going home to isolation feels almost unbearable. "I should probably head home," Nathan says, though his voice lacks conviction. Rebecca hesitates, clearly wrestling with something. "Can I ask you something?" she says finally. "When you go home tonight, what does your evening usually look like?" The question catches Nathan off guard with its directness and its insight. Most people assume that because he is wealthy and successful, his personal life must be equally satisfying. Rebecca seems to intuit that professional achievement and personal fulfillment are not necessarily connected. "I usually check emails for an hour or two," Nathan admits. "Then I sit in my study with a book or watch television until I'm tired enough to sleep. Sophie goes to bed at 8, and after that the house is completely quiet." "That sounds lonely," Rebecca says gently. It is, Nathan acknowledges, surprising himself with the honesty. "It's been lonely for a long time." Rebecca studies his face with the same careful attention she has shown throughout the evening. "Would you like to come back next week?" she asks. "Not for a special occasion, just for dinner. Emma and I eat together every Tuesday night when I don't have to work late, and she's been asking if we could invite you." Nathan feels something loosen in his chest, a tension he didn't realize he was carrying. "I would like that very much," he says. "Are you sure it wouldn't be an imposition?" Nathan. Rebecca says, her voice warm with sincerity. "You've been nothing but kind to us. Emma adores you, and to be honest, it was nice to have adult conversation tonight. I don't get much of that between work and taking care of everything else." The arrangement they make feels natural and comfortable. Tuesday evening dinners, when Rebecca's schedule allows, with Nathan contributing groceries and Rebecca providing the cooking and the warm apartment that has become a refuge from his isolation. Over the following weeks, these dinners become the highlight of Nathan's week. He finds himself looking forward to Tuesday evenings with an anticipation he has not felt about anything in 18 months. He starts leaving work earlier on those days, declining business dinners and evening meetings that would interfere with his time at Rebecca's apartment. The conversations during these dinners gradually deepen as trust builds between them. Rebecca shares her dreams of returning to nursing school and her fears about whether she can manage the academic demands while continuing to work and parent. Nathan talks about his growing realization that business success means nothing if you have no one to share it with, and his increasing desire to find ways to use his resources for something more meaningful than accumulating wealth. Emma becomes more comfortable with Nathan's presence, treating him less like a special guest and more like part of their routine. She starts saving up funny stories from school to share with him on Tuesday evenings. She asks his opinion about homework assignments and school projects. She begins to rely on him for help reaching things on high shelves and opening stubborn jars, the kinds of small domestic tasks that create intimacy through repeated interaction. Nathan also starts making changes in other areas of his life, changes inspired by what he observes in Rebecca and Emma's home. He begins leaving work at reasonable hours instead of staying until exhaustion forces him to go home. He reaches out to friends he has been avoiding since Maria's death, accepting invitations he would have previously declined. Most importantly, he starts making changes in his relationship with Sophie. Inspired by Rebecca's advice about offering choices and creating safety for self-expression, Nathan begins asking Sophie about her preferences for small things, what she wants for breakfast, which toys she would like to play with, what books she might enjoy hearing. The changes in Sophie are gradual but noticeable. She starts nodding or shaking her head in response to questions instead of remaining completely passive. She begins pointing to things she wants instead of waiting for Nathan to guess her needs. She even whispers a few words to him during bedtime stories, though her voice is so quiet he has to strain to hear her. Nathan shares these small victories with Rebecca during their Tuesday dinners, and he can see how much his progress with Sophie means to her. Rebecca understands the significance of these tiny steps forward because she has navigated similar challenges with Emma. As November turns to December, Nathan realizes that his entire perspective on his life has changed. The crushing loneliness that characterized his existence after Maria's death has been replaced by a sense of connection and purpose. He has people to care about again, people who care about him in return. The change becomes most evident to him one Tuesday evening when he arrives at Rebecca's apartment and finds Emma helping her mother cook dinner. Instead of sitting politely and waiting to be served, Nathan automatically starts setting the table and asking how he can help. The three of them work together to prepare the meal with an ease that feels like family, and Nathan realizes that somewhere in these weeks of shared dinners, they have become important to each other in ways that extend far beyond the original birthday cake partnership. Rebecca seems to notice the shift too. Her smiles come more easily when she sees him, and their conversations after Emma goes to bed stretch longer each week. Nathan finds himself studying her face when she talks, appreciating the way her eyes light up when she discusses her dreams. The gentle way she interacts with Emma, the strength that allows her to maintain hope and warmth despite her difficult circumstances. One evening in early December, as they clean dishes together after dinner, Rebecca mentions that Emma has been asking whether Nathan might join them for Christmas. "I know that's a big request," Rebecca says carefully. "Christmas is family time, and I don't want to presume that I would love to spend Christmas with you, Nathan," interrupts, realizing as he says the words that he cannot imagine celebrating the holiday any other way. "If you'll have me?" Rebecca's face lights up with genuine joy. "Emma will be so excited," she says. "She's been worried that you might be alone on Christmas, and she's been planning what presents she could make for you." The thought of Emma creating handmade gifts for him touches Nathan more deeply than any expensive present he has ever received. He has become part of this child's world in a way that feels both humbling and deeply meaningful. "What about Sophie?" Rebecca asks. "Would you want to bring her with you?" Nathan considers this question carefully. Sophie has shown more improvement in the past few weeks, but she is still largely non-verbal and tends to become anxious in unfamiliar environments. However, Emma's patience and gentleness might be exactly what Sophie needs to take another step forward in her healing. "I think she might be ready for that," Nathan says slowly. Emma has a gift for making people feel safe. Maybe being around another little girl would be good for Sophie. As Nathan drives home that evening, he reflects on how completely his life has changed in just a few months. He has gone from dreading each day to looking forward to shared meals and conversations. He has gone from feeling like a failure as a parent to believing that he might actually be able to help Sophie heal. Most importantly, he has remembered what it feels like to care about people and to be cared about in return. The Tuesday dinners have become more than just pleasant interludes in his otherwise solitary existence. They have become the foundation for rebuilding his capacity for connection. His ability to be vulnerable with other people, his willingness to let others see his struggles without fear that they will judge him for not having all the answers. Nathan stands outside Rebecca's apartment door on a cold December evening, his hand resting gently on Sophie's shoulder as she presses herself against his leg. This is the first time he has brought his daughter anywhere social since Maria's death, and he can feel her anxiety radiating through her small body like heat from a fever. Sophie is 5 years old and beautiful in a way that makes strangers stop and comment. She has Maria's dark hair and delicate features combined with Nathan's serious eyes and careful way of moving through the world. But where Emma bounces and chatters and fills space with her personality, Sophie seems to take up as little room as possible, speaking in whispers when she speaks at all, and watching everything with the wariness of someone much older. "It's okay, sweetheart," Nathan says quietly, crouching down to Sophie's eye level before they go inside. "These are my friends Rebecca and Emma, the ones I've been telling you about. Emma is exactly your age, and she's very kind. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. You can just listen and see how you feel." Sophie nods solemnly but doesn't speak. Nathan knows that she understands everything he says to her, but words have become dangerous territory since her mother's death. The last thing Sophie said clearly was Mama on the day of the accident, calling for Maria as the ambulance drove away. And since then her voice has retreated to somewhere Nathan cannot reach. When the door opens, Emma's face lights up with the kind of immediate delight that only children possess. "Sophie," she exclaims, though she has never met Nathan's daughter before tonight. "I'm so happy you're here. I've been hoping to meet you forever." Emma's enthusiasm might overwhelm some children, but Nathan watches as Sophie's rigid posture softens slightly. There is something about Emma's genuine excitement that doesn't feel threatening or demanding, just welcoming. "I made cookies today?" Emma continues, taking Sophie's silence in stride. "They're chocolate chip and they're still warm. Do you want to see my room first, or do you want cookies first?" Rebecca appears behind Emma, her expression warm but careful as she observes the interaction between the girls. She understands without explanation that Sophie requires a gentler approach than most children, and Nathan feels grateful for her intuitive sensitivity. "Hi, Sophie," Rebecca says softly. "I'm Rebecca, Emma's mama. We're so glad you could come for dinner tonight." Sophie looks up at Rebecca, but doesn't respond verbally. Instead, she reaches for Nathan's hand and holds it tightly, anchoring herself to the one person who represents safety in this new environment. The apartment feels different with Sophie's presence, quieter and more careful. Emma, to her credit, seems to understand instinctively that her usual exuberance needs to be modulated for their guest. She shows Sophie her toys and books, without pressuring her to respond, chattering gently about her favorite things, while giving Sophie space to observe and process. Nathan watches this interaction with a mixture of hope and anxiety. Sophie has not been around other children since the accident, and he has no idea how she will react to Emma's attempts at friendship. But Emma's natural empathy and patience create a safe space for Sophie to exist without pressure. During dinner, Sophie sits between Nathan and Emma, eating quietly while the others talk. Emma occasionally offers her things more milk, another dinner roll, a different fork when she notices Sophie struggling with the adult-sized silverware, but she doesn't pressure Sophie to engage verbally. The breakthrough comes after dinner, when Emma suggests they look at her photo albums together. Sophie's eyes widen with interest when she sees pictures of Emma as a baby, and she points to one photograph with a questioning expression. "That's me when I was 3, Emma explains. "I was really little, but Daddy was teaching me to feed the ducks at the park." "Do you like to feed ducks?" Sophie nods, the first clear communication she has offered all evening. "We should go feed ducks together sometime," Emma says, matter-of-factly. "I know all the best spots where the friendly ducks hang out." Nathan feels his throat tighten with emotion. This simple exchange represents more social interaction than Sophie has initiated in months, and it's happening because Emma has created a space where Sophie feels safe enough to express interest in something. As the evening progresses, Sophie begins to relax visibly. She doesn't speak, but she starts making eye contact with Emma and Rebecca. She accepts a second helping of dessert when Emma offers it. She even smiles slightly when Emma shows her a particularly funny photograph. When it comes time to leave, Sophie surprises everyone by approaching Emma directly instead of hanging back behind Nathan. "Thank you," she whispers, her voice so quiet that Nathan has to strain to hear it. Emma's face lights up like Christmas morning. "You're welcome, Sophie. I hope you can come back soon because I really like having a friend who's exactly my age." The drive home is quiet, but Nathan can sense that something has shifted in Sophie. She sits in her car seat looking out the window instead of staring at her lap. And when they arrive home, she doesn't immediately disappear to her room as she usually does. "Did you have fun tonight?" Nathan asks as he helps her get ready for bed. Sophie nods, then after a long pause whispers, "Emma is nice." "She is nice," Nathan agrees. "Would you like to see her again?" Another nod, and then so quietly, Nathan almost misses it. "Yes, please." That night, Nathan calls Rebecca after Sophie is asleep to report on the evening's success. She spoke, Nathan tells Rebecca, his voice thick with emotion. Not much, but she actually initiated a conversation with Emma, and she asked to see her again. "That's wonderful," Rebecca says, genuine happiness evident in her voice. "Emma has been talking non-stop since you left about how much she likes Sophie, and how excited she is to have a friend who understands about missing a parent." The connection Emma mentioned hits Nathan with sudden understanding. Both girls have lost a parent, though, in different ways, and at different stages of their development. Emma's father died when she was too young to fully understand what was happening, while Sophie witnessed her mother's death and understood exactly what she was losing. But perhaps that shared experience of loss, processed through the lens of childhood resilience, can become a source of healing for both of them. Over the following weeks, Nathan begins bringing Sophie to their Tuesday dinners regularly. The two girls develop a quiet friendship that doesn't require constant conversation or shared activities. Sometimes they simply sit together, drawing or looking at books, comfortable in each other's presence, without needing to fill every moment with interaction. Emma's patient acceptance of Sophie's silence gradually helps Sophie feel safe enough to communicate in small ways. She starts nodding or shaking her head in response to Emma's questions. She begins pointing to things she wants or finds interesting. She even starts humming quietly while they play a sound Nathan hasn't heard from her since before the accident. Most remarkably, Sophie begins sleeping through the night for the first time in 18 months. The nightmares and night terrors that have plagued her since Mariah's death become less frequent and less intense. Nathan realizes that having a friend who understands loss has given Sophie something that all the professional therapy in the world couldn't provide: the knowledge that she is not alone in her grief. The connection between the two families deepens as well. Rebecca and Nathan find themselves coordinating schedules to maximize the time the girls can spend together. Nathan starts picking Emma up from school when Rebecca has to work late, and Rebecca returns the favor when Nathan has business obligations that would interfere with Sophie's routine. These practical arrangements gradually evolve into something more significant. Nathan and Rebecca begin talking on the phone between their Tuesday dinners, sharing stories about the girls' progress and discussing challenges in their daily routines. Nathan finds himself looking forward to these conversations as much as their in-person meetings, appreciating Rebecca's insight into children's emotional needs and her ability to offer practical suggestions without judgment. One evening, as they watch the girls play quietly together while sharing hot chocolate, Rebecca makes an observation that stops Nathan's breathing momentarily. "They're healing each other," she says softly. "Emma is remembering what it's like to be protective and nurturing, and Sophie is learning that it's safe to need someone again." Nathan realizes that Rebecca has articulated something he has been sensing, but hasn't been able to put into words. Both children have been changed by their friendship, but the changes go beyond simple companionship. They are helping each other process their losses and rebuild their capacity for trust and joy. As December progresses toward Christmas, Nathan begins to understand that his relationship with Rebecca and Emma has evolved far beyond friendship. They have become family in all the ways that matter, connected not by blood, but by choice and mutual care, and the kind of love that grows gradually from shared experience and genuine understanding. The phone call that changes everything comes on a Tuesday morning in mid-December, just as Nathan is reviewing plans for Christmas celebrations with Rebecca and the girls. His assistant's voice carries an urgency that immediately puts Nathan on alert, summoning him to an emergency board meeting that cannot be postponed. Nathan arrives at his office to find his conference room filled with lawyers, accountants, and board members, their faces grim with the kind of expressions that accompany devastating news. The documents spread across the table tell a story that Nathan can barely comprehend. His business partner of 10 years, Marcus Rivera, has been steadily embezzling funds from their company for the past 3 years. The amounts are staggering. Nearly $2 million has been siphoned from various projects through falsified invoices, inflated contractor payments, and redirected client deposits. Marcus had access to all company accounts as co-owner, and he used that access to finance a gambling addiction that Nathan never suspected existed. The discovery came to light when a routine audit for a potential investor revealed discrepancies that couldn't be explained through normal business fluctuations. Further investigation uncovered a pattern of financial manipulation so extensive that it threatens the viability of the entire company. Nathan sits in stunned silence as the lawyers explain the legal implications. Marcus has disappeared, apparently fleeing the state when he realized the audit would expose his crimes. The company's assets are frozen pending investigation. Ongoing construction projects must halt immediately due to lack of funds. Employees will not receive their December paychecks. Worse still, Nathan learns that his personal reputation is inexorably tied to the company's scandal. Business publications are already preparing stories about Brooks Development's collapse, and Nathan's name features prominently in the coverage. Potential clients are withdrawing from contracts. Investors are demanding immediate repayment of loans. The financial damage extends beyond the stolen money. Legal fees will consume hundreds of thousands of dollars. Lawsuits from angry clients and contractors are inevitable. Even if Nathan can prove his innocence and eventually rebuild the company that took him 15 years to build, may not survive the next 6 months. Nathan returns home that evening feeling like he has been hit by a truck. Sophie is at the nanny's house for a planned sleepover, and Nathan is grateful to be alone as he tries to process the magnitude of the disaster that has befallen his professional life. He considers calling Rebecca to explain why he will have to cancel their Tuesday dinner, but the prospect of telling her about the scandal feels overwhelming. How does he explain that everything she knows about his success and stability has been built on a foundation that is now crumbling? How does he admit that the security he represented to her and Emma may have been an illusion? Nathan spends the evening making phone calls to lawyers, accountants, and business associates, trying to understand his options and develop a plan for moving forward. Each conversation brings more bad news. The legal proceedings will be lengthy and expensive. The media attention will be intense and damaging. The probability of saving the company in its current form is minimal. By midnight, Nathan understands that he faces a choice between two equally daunting options. Fight to salvage what remains of Brooks Development Corporation, investing everything he has in legal fees and damage control with no guarantee of success, or walk away from the company entirely, declare bankruptcy, and start over from nothing at 37 years old. Either path will require abandoning his current lifestyle and accepting a level of financial insecurity he hasn't experienced since his early 20s. Either path will mean explaining to Sophie why their life is changing dramatically, why they may have to sell their house and move to a smaller one, why Daddy's work situation has become complicated in ways that a 5-year-old cannot understand. And either path will mean revealing to Rebecca that the man she has come to trust and care about is facing professional and personal ruin. The phone rings at 11:30 that night. Rebecca's name appears on the caller ID and Nathan stares at it for several rings before answering, unsure whether he can handle her voice right now without breaking down completely. Rebecca's voice carries concern and gentle worry. "Emma and I were expecting you for dinner tonight, and when you didn't show up, we got worried. Is everything okay? Is Sophie all right?" Nathan closes his eyes, overwhelmed by the simple evidence that these people care about his well-being enough to check on him when he fails to appear as expected. The kindness in Rebecca's voice makes his current situation feel even more devastating. "I'm sorry," Nathan says, his voice rough with exhaustion. "I should have called. There was a crisis at work, and I've been dealing with lawyers all evening. Sophie is fine. She's staying overnight at the nanny's house." "What kind of crisis?" Rebecca asks, her tone shifting from concern to the careful attention of someone prepared to listen to serious problems. Nathan finds himself telling her everything. The words pour out of him in a rush: the embezzlement, the frozen accounts, the legal implications, the media attention, the probability that he will lose everything he has spent 15 years building. He describes his shock at discovering that Marcus, whom he trusted completely, had been stealing from their company and their clients for years. Rebecca listens without interrupting, occasionally making soft sounds of sympathy or disbelief, but mostly letting Nathan talk through the enormity of what has happened. When he finishes, the silence stretches for a long moment. "I'm so sorry, Nathan," Rebecca finally says. "That's a terrible betrayal, and I can't imagine how you must be feeling right now." Scared, Nathan admits. Angry, completely lost about what to do next, and ashamed that I didn't see what was happening under my nose. "You couldn't have known," Rebecca says firmly. "People who steal and lie professionally are good at hiding what they're doing. This isn't your fault." Her immediate defense of him means more than Nathan can express, but it also makes him feel worse about the implications his situation will have for their relationship. Rebecca, Nathan says carefully, "This is going to affect everything about my life. I may lose my house, my business, my reputation. I don't know what my financial situation will be when this is all over. I don't want you to feel obligated to maintain our friendship if it becomes complicated or difficult." The silence that follows this statement lasts long enough that Nathan wonders if Rebecca is reconsidering her involvement with someone whose life is falling apart in such a public and dramatic way. "Nathan," Rebecca says slowly, "are you trying to protect me from your problems, or are you looking for an excuse to withdraw from people who care about you?" The question hits Nathan like a physical blow because it cuts straight to the truth he hasn't admitted to himself. Part of him is indeed looking for reasons to isolate himself again, to retreat into the familiar territory of handling everything alone rather than risking additional vulnerability. "I don't know," Nathan says honestly. Nathan says, "Maybe both." "Well, stop it," Rebecca says, her voice carrying gentle but unmistakable firmness. "Emma and I don't care about your business or your money or your reputation. We care about you, and whatever happens with your company, that doesn't change who you are or how much you mean to us." Nathan feels his throat tighten with emotion. "But if I lose everything, then you'll figure out what comes next." Rebecca interrupts. "And you won't have to figure it out alone because you have people who love you now." The word love hangs in the air between them, carrying weight that neither of them has acknowledged before. Nathan realizes that somewhere in the past few months their friendship has evolved into something deeper and more significant than either of them has been willing to name. The crisis deepens over the following 2 weeks as the full scope of the scandal becomes public. Nathan's name appears in newspaper headlines and business blog articles, always linked with terms like fraud, embezzlement, and financial misconduct. Television news programs feature segments about the collapse of Brooks Development Corporation, with reporters standing outside his office building while discussing the charges against Marcus and the investigation into Nathan's potential involvement. Nathan hires criminal defense attorneys in addition to the civil lawyers handling the company's bankruptcy proceedings. Although investigators find no evidence that Nathan knew about or participated in Marcus's theft, the legal process moves slowly, and the court of public opinion operates without regard for due process or presumption of innocence. The practical consequences arrive swiftly. Nathan's personal assets are frozen pending resolution of the criminal investigation. His house goes into foreclosure when he cannot access funds to pay the mortgage. His credit rating plummets as creditors demand immediate payment on business loans he personally guaranteed. Most painfully, Nathan realizes that he cannot continue paying for Sophie's private school, her therapy sessions, or the nanny who has provided stability in her life since Maria's death. Every support structure he built to help his daughter heal must be dismantled because he no longer has the financial resources to maintain them. The conversation with Sophie about these changes ranks among the most difficult moments of Nathan's parenting experience. How do you explain to a 5-year-old that everything familiar and secure in her life is about to disappear because of adult problems she cannot understand, sweetheart? Nathan begins one evening as they sit together in her bedroom. Daddy's work situation has become very complicated. We're going to have to make some changes in our life for a while. Sophie looks at him with those serious, dark eyes, waiting for him to continue. We're going to have to move to a smaller house, Nathan explains, and you'll go to a different school where they have programs to help children who don't talk very much, and instead of having a nanny, you'll come home with Daddy every day after work. To Nathan's surprise, Sophie doesn't seem distressed by this news. Instead, she asks quietly, "Will Emma still be my friend?" "Yes," Nathan assures her. "Emma will always be your friend. That won't change no matter where we live or what happens with Daddy's work." Sophie nods solemnly, then asks, "Are we poor now?" The question breaks Nathan's heart with its directness. "We don't have as much money as we used to have," he says carefully. "But we have everything we need, and we have people who care about us. That's more important than having lots of money." Sophie considers this for a moment. "Will Rebecca and Emma still want to have dinner with us, even if we're poor?" Nathan realizes that Sophie has identified the fear underlying his own anxiety about the changes in their circumstances. Will the people who came to care about him during his successful period still want him in their lives when he has nothing material to offer? Yes, Nathan says firmly. Rebecca and Emma care about us for who we are, not for how much money we have. But even as he reassures Sophie, Nathan struggles with his own version of the same concern. Rebecca has built a life of careful independence, working hard to provide for herself and Emma without depending on anyone else. Nathan worries that his current situation will force him into the position of needing help rather than being able to provide it, disrupting the balance of their relationship in ways that might make her uncomfortable. These fears come to a head when Emma gets sick with pneumonia during the week before Christmas. Rebecca misses work to stay home with her, but the missed shifts cost her money she cannot afford to lose, especially with Christmas expense and Emma's medical bills. Nathan wants to help with the hospital costs and the lost wages, but his frozen assets make that impossible. For the first time in their friendship, he faces a situation where someone he cares about needs assistance and he cannot provide it. The helplessness he feels sitting beside Emma's hospital bed, while Rebecca worries about money as well as her daughter's health, drives home the reality of his changed circumstances. For months he has been able to contribute to their friendship through dinners out, gifts for Emma, and small gestures that eased Rebecca's financial stress. Now he can only offer emotional support, and his presence wondering if that will be enough. The situation becomes more complicated when Rebecca's car breaks down during Emma's recovery period. The repair costs exceed her available savings, and she faces the prospect of missing more work because she has no reliable transportation. Nathan arranges to borrow money from one of the few friends who hasn't distanced himself during the scandal planning to give it to Rebecca to cover the car repairs. But when he offers her the money, Rebecca's reaction surprises him. "I can't take this, Nathan," she says, though he can see how much she needs the help. "It's too much. I don't want our relationship to become about money." "It's not about money," Nathan protests. "It's about helping someone I care about when they need assistance." But Rebecca's pride and independence make it impossible for her to accept what feels like charity, even from someone she trusts. Her refusal leaves Nathan feeling useless and frustrated, unable to help the people who matter most to him during his own crisis. The tension this creates between them comes to a head on Christmas Eve, when Nathan arrives for their planned celebration, carrying only the modest gifts he managed to buy with borrowed money. The contrast between this Christmas and the elaborate celebration he had been planning before the scandal feels stark and embarrassing. Rebecca seems to sense his discomfort, and her attempts to reassure him that material gifts don't matter only make Nathan feel worse about his inability to provide the kind of Christmas he wanted to give Emma and Sophie. The evening, which should be joyful, becomes strained as Nathan struggles with shame about his changed circumstances, and Rebecca tries to navigate around his obvious discomfort. Both girls pick up on the tension between the adults, and their excitement about Christmas becomes subdued. Finally, Emma asks the question that cuts through all the adult complications. "Mr. Nathan, are you sad because you don't want to be our friend anymore?" Nathan's heart breaks at the innocence of the question and the fear behind it. "Oh, sweetheart," he says, kneeling down to Emma's eye level. "I will always want to be your friend. Always. I'm just worried that I'm not good enough to be part of your family anymore." "That's silly," Emma says, with the directness that has characterized all their conversations. "We don't love you because you're good enough. We love you because you're you." The simple wisdom of a 6-year-old cuts through Nathan's shame and fear more effectively than any adult reassurance could. Emma's unconditional acceptance reminds him that love and friendship are not transactional relationships based on what people can provide for each other. But the damage to his relationship with Rebecca proves harder to repair. His shame about accepting help and her discomfort with offering it create a barrier between them that neither knows how to cross without risking further hurt. On New Year's Eve, Nathan makes a decision that he believes is best for everyone involved. He tells Rebecca that he thinks they should take a break from their regular dinners until his legal situation resolves and his life stabilizes. "I don't want my problems to complicate your life any further," Nathan explains. "You and Emma have been nothing but kind to me, and I don't want to repay that kindness by burdening you with my troubles." Rebecca's face shows hurt and confusion. "You're not a burden, Nathan. We want to help you get through this." "I know you do," Nathan says. "And that's exactly why I need to step back. I can't be the person who takes more than he gives in this relationship." Rebecca stares at him for a long moment, and Nathan can see her trying to decide whether to fight his decision or respect it. "If that's what you think is best," she says finally, her voice carefully neutral. "I think it is," Nathan says, though saying the words feels like tearing something vital out of his chest. As Nathan leaves Rebecca's apartment that night, he tells himself that he is protecting her and Emma from the complications and uncertainty of his situation. But deep down, he knows that he is primarily protecting himself from the vulnerability of needing people and the fear that his need might eventually drive them away. 3 weeks pass in mutual misery. Nathan throws himself into the legal proceedings and the complex process of bankruptcy, working with attorneys to salvage what little can be saved from Brooks Development Corporation while rebuilding his life from the ground up. Sophie, confused by the sudden absence of Emma and Rebecca from their routine, becomes withdrawn again, losing much of the progress she had made in her emotional recovery. Emma fares no better. She asks repeatedly about Mr. Nathan, and when they will see him again, unable to understand why her birthday cake partner has suddenly disappeared from their lives. Rebecca finds herself explaining that sometimes adults make decisions that don't make sense to children, all while struggling with her own hurt and confusion about Nathan's withdrawal. The intervention comes from an unexpected source, Trassoir's Mrs. Patterson, the elderly owner of Rosewood Bakery, where Nathan and Emma first met. She appears at Rebecca's apartment on a Saturday morning, carrying a box of fresh pastries and wearing the determined expression of someone who has decided to meddle in other people's business for their own good. "I've been watching the news coverage about that poor man's business troubles," Mrs. Patterson announces without preamble, settling herself at Rebecca's kitchen table as if invited. "And I've been thinking about the story Emma told me about her birthday cake partner, and how he disappeared right when she needed him most." Mrs. Patterson's directness catches Rebecca off guard. She has not discussed Nathan's withdrawal with anyone except Emma, wanting to preserve his privacy despite her own hurt feelings. "That little girl has been coming to my bakery every week since Christmas, asking if I've seen Mr. Nathan. Mrs. Patterson continues. And yesterday I had enough of watching her worry about someone she loves, so I called him myself." Rebecca's eyes widen. "You called Nathan?" "I did indeed. And I told him exactly what I thought about grown men who run away from people who care about them when life gets difficult." Mrs. Patterson's expression softens slightly. "That man is hurting, dear, and he's convinced himself that protecting you from his problems is more important than letting you help him through them." Rebecca sits down across from Mrs. Patterson, feeling suddenly exhausted. "I tried to tell him that we didn't care about his money or his business troubles, but he wouldn't listen. Pride makes fools of us all sometimes," Mrs. Patterson observes, "especially men who are used to being strong and successful. But that man loves you and Emma, even if he's too scared to admit it right now." The word love hits Rebecca like a physical blow. She has been careful not to examine her own feelings too closely, afraid of what she might discover. But Mrs. Patterson's blunt statement forces her to acknowledge what she has been avoiding. "I love him too," Rebecca admits quietly. "Both of them, Nathan and Sophie. But I don't know how to help someone who won't let me." "You don't help him," Mrs. Patterson says firmly. "You corner him and make him face the truth about what he's throwing away." Mrs. Patterson's plan is simple and direct. She will call both Nathan and Rebecca, ask them to meet her at the bakery that evening, and refuse to let either of them leave until they have an honest conversation about their feelings and their fears. Rebecca agrees to the plan, partly because she misses Nathan and Sophie desperately, and partly because she recognizes that someone needs to force them past the barriers of pride and fear that have kept them apart. That evening, Rebecca arrives at Rosewood Bakery to find the lights dimmed and a closed sign hanging in the window. Through the glass door, she can see Nathan sitting at one of the small cafe tables, his shoulders hunched with defeat and exhaustion. Mrs. Patterson opens the door with a satisfied smile. "Good you're both here. Now sit down and talk to each other like adults instead of scared children." The first few minutes are awkward and painful. Nathan looks like he has lost weight and sleep his usual polished appearance replaced by wrinkled clothes and stubbled face. Rebecca notices the dark circles under his eyes and the way his hands shake slightly when he reaches for the coffee cup Mrs. Patterson places in front of him. "How's Emma?" Nathan asks quietly, breaking the silence. "She misses you," Rebecca says, honestly. "She doesn't understand why you stopped coming to dinner. She keeps asking if she did something wrong." Nathan's face crumples slightly. "Of course she didn't do anything wrong. None of this is about her or about you." "Then what is it about?" Rebecca asks, leaning forward. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you decided that we're not worth the risk of being vulnerable with." Nathan is quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee cup as if it might contain answers to questions he doesn't know how to ask. "I lost everything, Rebecca," he says finally. "My business, my house, my reputation. I'm probably going to lose the custody case for Sophie too, because her mother's family is claiming that my current situation makes me an unfit parent." Rebecca's breath catches. "You never mentioned Sophie's mother having family." "Maria's parents live in California," Nathan explains. "They've been fighting for custody since she died, claiming that Sophie would be better off with them. Before the scandal, I had lawyers and money and stability to argue against them. Now I have nothing." The revelation of this additional crisis hits Rebecca like a punch to the stomach. Nathan has been facing not only financial ruin and public humiliation, but the possibility of losing his daughter as well. "Why didn't you tell me?" Rebecca asks, her voice thick with emotion. "Because there's nothing you can do about it," Nathan says. "And because I couldn't bear to watch you realize that getting involved with me might mean getting involved with a complicated custody battle that could drag on for years." Rebecca stares at him across the small table, understanding finally dawning. "You thought I would walk away?" "I thought you should walk away," Nathan corrects. "You have your own life to build, your own daughter to protect. You don't need to get tangled up in my legal problems and family drama." Mrs. Patterson, who has been listening to this exchange while pretending to organize inventory, speaks up from behind the counter. "Nathan Brooks, you are the biggest fool I've met in 72 years of living," she announces. "This woman has been crying herself to sleep for 3 weeks because she thought you didn't want her anymore, and you've been suffering alone because you're too proud to let people who love you help carry the load." Both Nathan and Rebecca look at the elderly woman with surprise at her directness. "Now, Mrs." Patterson continues coming around the counter to stand beside their table. "You're going to stop making decisions for each other and start making decisions with each other, because that's what people who love each other do." The words hang in the air between Nathan and Rebecca, forcing them to confront the feelings they have been avoiding naming. "I do love you," Rebecca says quietly, her voice trembling. "Both of you. And I understand that your life is complicated right now, but that doesn't make me want to run away from you. It makes me want to help you fight." Nathan looks at her with an expression that contains equal parts hope and fear. "But if you get involved with me now, you could end up getting pulled into legal proceedings that could last for years. Sophie's grandparents have expensive lawyers and political connections. They're going to make this as ugly as possible." "Then we'll make sure you have good legal representation too," Rebecca says firmly. "And we'll document how much Sophie has healed since she started spending time with Emma." We'll show them that she needs stability and love more than she needs money and status. Nathan feels something crack open in his chest, some wall he has built around himself to protect against hope. You would do that, he asks. You would really get involved in something this complicated and uncertain. Rebecca reaches across the table and takes his hand. Nathan, she says, her voice steady and sure. Emma asked me to marry her when she was 6, and I said yes, because I knew she would be my daughter forever, no matter what happened. That's how I feel about you and Sophie, too. The admission takes Nathan's breath away. Rebecca has just offered him not only her support through his current crisis, but her commitment to their future together, regardless of how uncertain that future might be. Mrs. Patterson clears her throat loudly. Well, it's about time you two admitted what everyone else could see months ago. Now, are you going to keep sitting here talking? Or are you going to go home and explain to those 2 little girls why the adults in their lives have been acting like fools? The months that follow require more strength and patience than any of them anticipated, but they face the challenges together instead of alone. Nathan moves into a small apartment across town, close enough to Rebecca's building that the girls can easily go back and forth between homes. Sophie's custody case becomes the focus of their lives as they work with Nathan's lawyers to document her progress and demonstrate that her healing depends on maintaining the relationships she has built. Rebecca becomes a fierce advocate for Sophie's well-being, attending court hearings and meeting with child welfare officials to explain how much the little girl has improved since forming friendships with people who understand her trauma. She documents Sophie's increasing verbal communication, her improved sleep patterns, and her growing confidence in social situations. Emma contributes to the effort in her own way, creating drawings and writing short stories about her friendship with Sophie, to show the court how important their relationship has become. Her innocent artwork captures the genuine affection between the 2 girls and provides powerful evidence that Sophie is thriving in her current environment. Nathan's financial situation slowly stabilizes as the criminal investigation concludes without charges against him, and the civil proceedings allow him to salvage some assets from the bankruptcy. He starts a much smaller construction company, focusing on residential renovations and small commercial projects, rather than the large-scale developments that made him wealthy. The work is more hands-on and less lucrative than his previous position, but Nathan discovers that he enjoys the direct involvement in building projects and the personal relationships he develops with clients. He comes home tired but satisfied, covered in sawdust and paint rather than wearing expensive suits, and Sophie seems to prefer this version of her father. Rebecca returns to nursing school part-time while continuing to work at the diner. Nathan helps with childcare and homework supervision when her schedule becomes overwhelming, and they develop a routine of shared responsibilities that works for both families. The custody case reaches its climax in June, nearly 6 months after Nathan's withdrawal from Rebecca's life. Sophie's grandparents have hired investigators who document every aspect of Nathan's reduced circumstances, arguing that he cannot provide the educational opportunities and financial security that they can offer in California. The hearing becomes a test of whether love and stability matter more than money and status in determining a child's best interests. Nathan testifies about Sophie's progress, describing how she has begun speaking again and forming friendships for the first time since her mother's death. Rebecca takes the stand as a character witness, explaining her professional background in nursing and her observations of Sophie's emotional development. She describes specific incidents that demonstrate Sophie's growing confidence and security, providing expert context for the changes Nathan has described. But the most powerful testimony comes from Sophie herself. When the judge asks to speak with her privately, Sophie finds her voice in a way that surprises everyone who knows her history of silence. "I want to stay with my daddy," Sophie tells the judge clearly. "And I want Rebecca and Emma to be my family too. They help me remember how to be happy." The judge's decision, delivered 2 weeks later, awards Nathan full custody while requiring regular contact with Sophie's grandparents through visits and phone calls. More importantly, the judge commends Nathan for providing Sophie with exactly the kind of stable, loving environment that promotes healing from trauma. The celebration that evening at Rebecca's apartment feels like the culmination of months of uncertainty and fear. Nathan, Rebecca. Emma and Sophie gather around the kitchen table that has become the center of their shared life, eating takeout pizza and chocolate cake from Mrs. Patterson's bakery. Nathan realizes as he looks around the table that he has rebuilt his life in a completely different form than before, but it is a better life than he ever imagined possible. He has less money, but more happiness. He has a smaller house, but a larger heart. He has fewer business contacts, but deeper personal relationships. Most importantly, he has remembered what really matters: being present for the people you love, showing up when they need you, and accepting help when you need them. During the quiet moments after the girls go to bed, Nathan and Rebecca sit on her small balcony, looking out at the neighborhood lights and talking about their future together. I never thought I'd be grateful for losing everything, Nathan says quietly. But if Marcus hadn't stolen from the company, I never would have learned what it feels like to build a life based on love instead of success. Rebecca takes his hand. You didn't lose everything, she reminds him. You just lost the things that didn't really matter so you could find the things that do. A month later, Nathan proposes to Rebecca in the same bakery where Emma first invited him to share a birthday cake. Patterson closes the store early so they can have the space to themselves, and Emma helps Nathan present the ring he bought with money saved from his small business profits. The ring is modest compared to the elaborate jewelry he could have afforded during his wealthy period. But Rebecca's reaction makes it clear that the size of the diamond matters far less than the love and commitment it represents. Will you marry me? Nathan asks, kneeling in the same spot where Emma first pointed to the chocolate cake that started their friendship. Yes, Rebecca says through tears of joy. Yes to all of it, marriage, family, building a life together. Emma and Sophie, who have been watching from the corner table where they shared hot chocolate during their first meeting, cheer and rush over to join the embrace. 6 months later, they gather in Riverside Park for a wedding ceremony that reflects their values and their journey together. The setting is simple but meaningful. A grove of trees near the pond where they have shared countless family picnics with folding chairs borrowed from the community center and flowers picked from the public gardens. Rebecca wears a simple white dress that she found on sale and altered herself accessorized with a necklace made from sea glass that Emma collected during their last beach trip together. Nathan wears his best suit, which is no longer designer quality, but fits his current life perfectly. Emma and Sophie serve as flower girls, walking down the makeshift aisle hand in hand, while scattering rose petals they convinced Mrs. Patterson to contribute from her bakery's garden. Both girls wear matching yellow dresses that Rebecca sewed during evening hours when they couldn't sleep due to excitement about the upcoming celebration. The wedding party is small but significant. Mrs. Rodriguez from downstairs, Mrs. Patterson with tears streaming down her cheeks. A few close friends from work and Nathan's foreman from his construction crew with his wife and children. Nathan's vows focus on gratitude rather than promises. He thanks Rebecca for teaching him that strength sometimes looks like vulnerability, that accepting help isn't the same as admitting weakness, that love multiplies when it's shared rather than hoarded. Rebecca's vows describe the journey from their first meeting to this moment, acknowledging the difficulties they've navigated together and expressing her certainty that they can handle whatever challenges the future might bring. When the officiant asks if anyone objects to the marriage, Emma raises her hand with mock seriousness. I object to waiting any longer for cake, she announces, making everyone dissolve into laughter. The reception takes place in the same park with picnic tables covered in white tablecloths and centerpieces made from wildflowers. Miss Patterson has donated a wedding cake not as elaborate as the original birthday cake that brought Nathan and Emma together, but decorated with chocolate ganache and buttercream flowers that make Emma declare it the most beautiful cake in the entire world. During the father-daughter dance, Nathan dances with both Emma and Sophie, simultaneously spinning them around while they giggle with delight. The image captures something essential about their family joy that has been built consciously through shared experience rather than inherited through biology. Rebecca dances with her new husband while the girls chase fireflies in the gathering dusk, their laughter mixing with the sound of acoustic guitar music provided by one of Nathan's workers who plays in a local band. As the evening winds down and they gather their belongings to go home, Emma makes an observation that stops all the adults in their tracks. "Mr. Nathan," she says seriously, "do you remember when you were sad because you didn't have anyone to celebrate your birthday with?" "I remember," Nathan says, crouching down to her level. "Well, now you have so many people who love you that we'll never run out of reasons to celebrate," Emma announces with satisfaction. Nathan looks around at his chosen family. Rebecca with her arms full of leftover flowers, Sophie sleeping against Rebecca's shoulder. Emma in her yellow dress, now grass-stained from playing, and realizes that Emma has perfectly articulated what he has spent 2 years learning to understand. Love doesn't come from having the perfect circumstances or the most money or the most impressive achievements. Love comes from choosing each other daily, from showing up during difficult times, from building connections that survive crisis and change. As they walk back to their cars in the soft summer evening, Nathan reflects on the journey that brought them here. It began with a little girl who had $5 and enormous love for her mother, and it led to this, a family built from broken pieces that have been carefully fitted together into something stronger than any of them could have created alone. The next morning, they wake up in Nathan's apartment, now officially their shared home, and make breakfast together. Sophie sets the table while Emma helps Rebecca scramble eggs, and Nathan makes toast without burning it, a skill he has finally mastered after months of practice. They eat together in comfortable domesticity, reading the Sunday comics aloud and planning their week. Emma has a school project that needs Nathan's construction expertise. Sophie has a dentist appointment that Rebecca will handle during her lunch break. They need groceries and the car needs an oil change, and Sophie's medication needs to be picked up from the pharmacy. The tasks are ordinary, mundane, even, but Nathan finds deep satisfaction in being part of a family that functions through cooperation and mutual support. This is what happiness looks like. He realizes not constant excitement or perfect circumstances, but the steady joy of being needed and knowing that others depend on you. 10 years after their first meeting at Rosewood Bakery, the Brooks family has settled into the rhythm of a life built intentionally around love and shared values. Nathan's construction company has grown steadily, but remains focused on projects that improve neighborhoods rather than maximize profits. Rebecca works as a pediatric nurse at the Children's Hospital, specializing in helping young patients and families cope with trauma and loss. Emma, now 16 and preparing for her senior year of high school, has inherited her mother's empathy and her adoptive father's practical skills. She volunteers at the animal shelter, tutors younger students in math and science, and has already been accepted to 3 nursing programs that will allow her to follow in Rebecca's footsteps while developing her own approach to healing. Sophie, 15, and fully recovered from her early trauma, has become Emma's closest friend and fiercest protector. She speaks fluently now, though she still prefers listening to talking, and her quiet wisdom often surprises adults who underestimate her insight. She excels at art and creative writing, using both to help other children express feelings they cannot put into words. The apartment that once housed Rebecca and Emma has been replaced by a modest house with a backyard garden and enough bedrooms for everyone to have their own space. Nathan built most of the furniture himself, and the walls are covered with photos documenting their journey as a family, birthdays and holidays, school performances and soccer games, quiet Sunday mornings, and elaborate dinner parties. Mrs. Patterson's bakery remains a weekly destination for family celebrations and ordinary treats. Now run by her daughter Margaret, the bakery has become a gathering place for their extended community of friends and neighbors who have watched their unconventional family grow and thrive. On this particular Saturday morning, Nathan sits at the kitchen table helping Sophie prepare for a presentation she will give to her English class about influential people in literature. Rebecca is in the garden with Emma harvesting tomatoes and discussing Emma's plans for college next year. The normalcy of the scene strikes Nathan as remarkable, not because it is extraordinary, but because it represents everything he never knew he wanted before Emma invited him to share a birthday cake. This is success. He realizes not the wealth and status he once pursued, but the deep satisfaction of being exactly where you belong with people who choose to love you daily. Sophie looks up from her notes and studies her father's face with the careful attention she has always brought to observing people's emotions. "Dad," she says quietly, "you look happy. Like really genuinely happy." Nathan considers this observation. Sophie has known him through his darkest period and his gradual healing, so her assessment carries particular weight. "I am happy," Nathan confirms. "I'm happier than I ever thought possible. Even happier than when you were rich and famous?" Sophie asks with teenage directness. "Much happier," Nathan says honestly. "Money and success felt important at the time, but they didn't actually make me happy. They just distracted me from noticing that I wasn't happy." Sophie nods as if this explanation confirms something she has been thinking about. "I'm glad you lost all that stuff," she says with startling honesty. "Because if you hadn't, we never would have met Emma and Rebecca, and I can't imagine our family without them." Nathan feels his throat tighten with emotion. Sophie rarely discusses the early years of her life, and she has never before expressed gratitude for the crisis that brought their family together. "You're right," Nathan says. "The best thing that ever happened to me was meeting your sister and stepmother, even though it happened during the worst time in my life." Emma's voice carries through the back door as she and Rebecca come inside, with their harvest discussing plans for making tomato sauce and debating whether they have enough basil growing in the herb garden. The kitchen fills with the comfortable chaos of family life as they prepare lunch together. Emma shares gossip about her classmates, while Rebecca offers advice about navigating teenage social dynamics. Sophie describes her art project, while Nathan suggests techniques for achieving the effect she wants to create. Over lunch, Rebecca mentions a conversation she had with one of her colleagues about a new program at the hospital designed to help children and families adjust after experiencing traumatic events. "They're looking for volunteer coordinators," Rebecca explains. "People who have personal experience with trauma recovery and who can mentor families going through similar situations." Nathan immediately understands the significance of this opportunity. "You want to apply," he says. "I think we should apply," Rebecca corrects. "As a family, we have something valuable to offer because we've been through loss and rebuilding ourselves. Emma and Sophie could help other kids who are struggling with anxiety or selective mutism or family changes. The idea energizes all of them." Emma talks about wanting to help other children whose parents die unexpectedly. Sophie mentions her interest in working with kids who have trouble expressing their feelings verbally. Nathan describes his desire to mentor other single parents who feel overwhelmed by the responsibility of raising children alone. As they plan their application for the volunteer program, Nathan realizes that their family's greatest strength lies not in their individual achievements, but in their collective wisdom about surviving loss and building connection from broken pieces. That evening, after the girls have gone to their rooms to work on homework, Nathan and Rebecca sit together in the living room, reading and enjoying the quiet intimacy of a Saturday night at home. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Emma hadn't invited you to that birthday party?" Rebecca asks, looking up from her book. Nathan considers the question seriously. "I probably would have continued isolating myself until I lost Sophie too," he says. "And you would have continued working yourself to exhaustion, trying to provide everything Emma needed, without accepting help from anyone. We were both so scared of being hurt again that we almost missed the best thing that could have happened to us," Rebecca observes. Nathan reaches for her hand. "I think that's why Emma was able to see what we needed before we could see it ourselves. Children haven't learned to be afraid of connection yet. They still believe that love is possible even when adults have given up hoping for it." Their conversation is interrupted by Sophie appearing in the doorway, clearly having overheard part of their discussion. "Emma didn't give up hope because she had something to hope for," Sophie says with characteristic insight. "She had you, Mom, to show her that love was worth fighting for, even when everything else was falling apart." Both adults look at Sophie with surprise at the maturity of her observation. Sophie continues, "And Mr. Nathan, Dad, you gave Emma something to hope for too, even though you didn't realize it at the time. You showed her that lonely people could be helped, that kindness actually works, that families can be built by choosing each other." Nathan feels overwhelmed by his 15-year-old daughter's wisdom and her understanding of the forces that brought their family together. "When did you become so wise?" Rebecca asks Sophie with genuine admiration. "I learned from watching all of you figure out how to be a family," Sophie says simply, "and from paying attention to what worked and what didn't work." The graduation ceremony takes place on a perfect June evening at the high school football stadium with rows of folding chairs arranged on the artificial turf, and a temporary stage decorated with the school colors of blue and gold. Nathan, Rebecca, and Sophie arrive early to claim seats close enough to see Emma clearly when she delivers her valedictorian speech. Nathan adjusts the camera he has brought to record the occasion, still amazed that the little girl who once saved her allowance to buy a $5 birthday cake has become the top student in her graduating class. Emma's academic success reflects her natural intelligence, but Nathan knows that her leadership qualities come from the compassion and wisdom she has developed through navigating her own family's challenges. The principal introduces Emma as a student who exemplifies the school's values of academic excellence, community service, and personal integrity. As Emma approaches the podium, Nathan feels the pride that comes from watching someone you love achieve something they have worked hard to accomplish. Emma begins her speech by thanking her teachers, classmates, and family for supporting her education. But then she shifts to a more personal story that catches Nathan completely off guard. "When I was 6 years old," she says, her voice carrying clearly across the stadium, "I met someone who taught me the most important lesson I've ever learned about how to live in this world." Nathan realizes with a jolt that Emma is about to tell their story to an audience of hundreds of people. "I had saved $5 from my allowance to buy my mother a birthday cake," Emma continues. "I thought I was rich because I had more money than I'd ever had before, but when I got to the bakery, I discovered that $5 couldn't buy the beautiful cake I wanted to give her." Emma's voice remains steady as she describes meeting Nathan that day, his obvious sadness and her decision to invite him into their celebration, despite knowing nothing about him except that he was lonely. "That man became my father," Emma says, gesturing toward Nathan in the audience. "Not through biology, but through choice. He chose to help a little girl buy a birthday cake, and I chose to believe that lonely people deserve friendship. My mother chose to trust a stranger who had shown kindness to her daughter, and he chose to build a life around love instead of success." Nathan feels tears streaming down his face as Emma describes their family's journey through crisis and rebuilding their commitment to supporting each other through uncertainty and change, and the ways that choosing love over fear has shaped all their decisions. "I learned that family isn't about having the perfect circumstances or the most money or the most impressive achievements," Emma says. "Family is about showing up for each other, especially when it's difficult. It's about seeing someone's pain and choosing to help instead of walking away. It's about believing that connection is more important than protection, that vulnerability is more valuable than invulnerability." Emma's speech concludes with a challenge to her classmates that echoes the wisdom she learned during her childhood experience of bringing strangers together into family. As we leave high school and enter the adult world, we're going to meet people who are lonely, scared, struggling, or lost. We can choose to walk past them, or we can choose to see them and offer connection. We can build walls to protect ourselves, or we can build bridges to include others. The choice we make will determine not only who we become, but what kind of world we create for the children who come after us. The applause that follows Emma's speech lasts for several minutes, and Nathan notices that many people in the audience are wiping their eyes. Emma's story has clearly resonated with people who recognize their own experiences of loss, hope, and chosen family in her words. After the ceremony, families gather on the field for pictures and congratulations. Nathan finds himself surrounded by Emma's classmates and their parents, many of whom want to meet the man whose willingness to help a 6-year-old buy a birthday cake led to the formation of an unconventional family. The attention feels overwhelming, but Nathan realizes that people are responding to something universal in their story, the possibility that broken situations can be repaired, that loss can lead to unexpected gain, that love can triumph over circumstances when people choose courage over safety. Miss Patterson appears through the crowd, now 82, and walking with a cane, but still determined not to miss important moments in the lives of people she considers family. "I'm proud of that girl," Mrs. Patterson tells Nathan as they watch Emma pose for pictures with her diploma. "She turned out exactly the way she was supposed to, full of love and wisdom and determination to make the world better. She learned that from watching you and Rebecca choose love over fear every single day," Nathan replies, "and from growing up in a house where kindness was valued more than any other achievement." That evening, the family gathers at their favorite restaurant for Emma's graduation dinner. The celebration is quiet and intimate, focused more on conversation than ceremony, reflecting their shared values about what makes occasions meaningful. Emma opens gifts that reflect her interests and goals, books about nursing and social work. From Rebecca, art supplies, and a journal from Sophie, and a laptop from Nathan to support her college studies. But the most meaningful gift comes from Emma herself, a handwritten letter to each family member expressing her gratitude for the specific ways they have contributed to her growth and happiness. Nathan's letter thanks him for showing her that men can be gentle and strong simultaneously, that fathers can be protective without being controlling, and that success means building something valuable rather than accumulating impressive possessions. Rebecca's letter acknowledges her sacrifices and determination, her willingness to work multiple jobs and pursue her education while raising a daughter alone, and her courage in opening their family to include strangers who became essential. Sophie's letter celebrates their friendship and sisterhood, the ways they have supported each other through adolescent challenges and family changes, and Sophie's quiet wisdom that has helped Emma navigate difficult decisions. As Nathan reads Emma's words, he realizes that she has become exactly the kind of person he would want as a daughter, compassionate, without being naive, strong without being hard, ambitious without being ruthless, generous without being foolish. On a Saturday afternoon in late summer, exactly 11 years after their first meeting, Nathan and Emma return to Rosewood Bakery together. Emma is preparing to leave for college in 2 weeks, and they have come to share one final birthday cake partnership before she begins the next chapter of her life. The bakery looks almost exactly as it did on that autumn afternoon when a 6-year-old girl with $5 met a lonely man who had forgotten how to hope. The same wooden display cases showcase beautiful cakes and pastries. The same warm light streams through the windows, casting everything in golden hues. The same sweet fragrances fill the air with promises of celebration and comfort. Margaret Patterson, now the owner since her mother's retirement, greets them with the familiarity of people who have watched each other's families grow and change over many years. "Let me guess," Margaret says with a smile. "You want the chocolate cake with buttercream flowers just like the one that started everything." Actually, Emma says I was thinking we might try something different this time. Something that represents who we are now instead of who we were then. Nathan raises his eyebrows, curious about what Emma has in mind. Emma studies the display cases with the same focused attention she showed as a child, but her choices now reflect different priorities. Instead of choosing the most elaborate and expensive option, she points to a simple vanilla cake decorated with fresh strawberries and whipped cream. That one, Emma says. It's beautiful without being fancy, and it's made with ingredients that taste like summer and new beginnings. Margaret boxes the cake, while Nathan and Emma sit at the same table where they had their first conversation about loneliness and birthday cake partnerships. Are you nervous about leaving for college? Nathan asks, though he can see from Emma's excitement that nervousness is not her primary emotion. I'm excited, Emma says, honestly. Scared too, but mostly excited. I feel ready for whatever comes next, because you and Mom and Sophie taught me everything I need to know about how to build relationships with people who are different from me. Nathan feels proud and slightly melancholy at the evidence of Emma's readiness for independence. Raising children successfully means preparing them to leave you, but the preparation doesn't make the leaving feel easier. Can I tell you something? Emma says, her expression becoming more serious. I've been thinking about that day we met, and I realized something I never understood before. What's that? Nathan asks. You weren't the only one who was saved that day, Emma says. I was saved too, even though I didn't know I needed saving. I was a little girl carrying all the responsibility for my mother's happiness, working so hard to take care of her that I forgot I was still a child who needed taking care of. Nathan had never considered this perspective on their first meeting, but Emma's insight helps him understand their relationship more completely. When you became part of our family, Emma continues, you gave me permission to be a kid again. You took some of the weight of worrying about Mom, and you showed me what it looked like when adults took care of each other instead of expecting children to be strong all the time. The observation touches Nathan deeply because it reveals how much Emma has understood about the dynamics of their family formation, even as a child. You saved all of us, Nathan says quietly. You saw what we needed before we could see it ourselves, and you had the courage to act on that knowledge. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of a new customer, a woman in her 30s with a toddler in her arms and exhaustion written across her face. She approaches the display cases with the hesitant movements of someone who is not sure she belongs in a place that sells expensive treats. The little boy points excitedly at a cupcake decorated with a toy dinosaur, but the woman gently redirects his attention to simpler options. Nathan recognizes immediately the careful negotiation between a parent who wants to give her child something special and the reality of limited resources. Emma notices the interaction too, and without hesitation, she approaches the woman. Excuse me, Emma says gently. I couldn't help noticing that your son likes dinosaurs. I'm Emma, and this is my dad, Nathan. We were just about to buy some extra cupcakes for a family celebration, and we wondered if your son might like to help us choose which ones to get. The woman looks uncertain, clearly worried about accepting charity, but Emma's manner is so natural and inclusive that it doesn't feel like pity. Nathan steps forward, understanding immediately what Emma is doing and why it matters. We always buy more than we need, Nathan explains. It's a family tradition that started when Emma was about your son's age. We believe that celebrations are better when they're shared. The little boy's excitement about the dinosaur cupcake convinces his mother to accept their offer, and Nathan watches as Emma engages the child in conversation about his favorite dinosaurs, while Margaret boxes up several cupcakes along with their original cake. As they leave the bakery together, Nathan realizes that Emma has just demonstrated the exact lesson she learned from their first meeting. See someone who needs kindness and offer it without making them feel small or ashamed for needing help. The young mother thanks them repeatedly, clearly overwhelmed by the unexpected generosity, and Nathan sees tears in her eyes as she realizes that her son will have a special treat to remember from this difficult period in their lives. Walking back to their car, Nathan feels a profound sense of completion. Emma has become the kind of person who creates connection and offers hope to strangers exactly as she did for him 11 years ago. The values he and Rebecca tried to teach her through their actions have taken root and grown into wisdom that she will carry forward into her adult life. That evening, the family gathers for Emma's farewell dinner, a tradition they have maintained for every major transition and celebration. Rebecca has prepared all of Emma's favorite foods, and Sophie has created a photo album documenting their years together as a family. During dessert, the strawberry cake from Rosewood Bakery, which tastes even better than it looked, Emma makes an announcement that surprises all of them. "I've decided what I want to do after I finish nursing school," she says. "I want to come back here and work with families who are dealing with trauma and loss. I want to help other children who are trying to take care of adults and other adults who have forgotten how to let people help them." Nathan feels his heart swell with pride and gratitude. Emma has chosen to dedicate her professional life to the same work of healing and connection that brought their family together, creating a legacy that extends far beyond their personal story. As the evening winds down and they prepare for Emma's departure, Nathan reflects on the journey that began with $5 and a birthday cake and has led to this moment of hope and purpose. The little girl who once worried that $5 might not be enough to buy her mother's love has grown into a young woman who understands that love cannot be bought at any price, only chosen and offered freely to people who need it most. The lonely man who once believed that success meant accumulating wealth and status has learned that true success means building connections that survive crisis and creating value that cannot be measured in dollars. And the family they built together from broken pieces has become something stronger and more beautiful than any of them could have imagined when they first sat down together to share a piece of chocolate cake and discovered that kindness really can change everything. As Emma packs her belongings for college the next morning, she carefully places the wooden box that holds all the birthday cards Nathan has given her over the years, the photo album Sophie created, and a handwritten letter from Rebecca containing advice about navigating adulthood with integrity and compassion. But the most precious item in her luggage is a small wrapped package from Mrs. Patterson, the original $5 bill that Emma spent on her mother's birthday cake 11 years ago, which Mrs. Patterson kept as a reminder that the smallest gestures can create the biggest changes. The attached note reads, "For emergency use only. When you meet someone who needs a birthday cake partner, you'll know what to do." Nathan drives Emma to college on a sunny September morning, their car filled with everything she needs to start her new life. As they pull into the dormitory parking lot, Nathan feels the bittersweet joy that comes from successfully preparing someone you love for independence. "You're going to be amazing," Nathan tells Emma, as they unload her belongings. "You already are amazing. Just remember that family is only a phone call away whenever you need us." "I know," Emma says, hugging him tightly. "And remember what you taught me. The best families are the ones we choose to build together. One act of kindness at a time." Driving home alone. That afternoon, Nathan thinks about the empty bedroom that awaits him, the quiet dinners without Emma's constant chatter, the ways that successful parenting requires learning to let go of the children you have loved and raised. But he also thinks about the young woman Emma has become, the difference she will make in other people's lives, and the way that love multiplies when it is given freely rather than hoarded protectively. That evening, Nathan, Rebecca, and Sophie sit together at their kitchen table, eating dinner and adjusting to Emma's absence. The conversation is quieter without her presence, but it is also deeper and more intimate, reflecting the changes that come when families evolve and mature. Sophie mentions her plans for senior year of high school and her interest in studying psychology or social work. Rebecca describes a new program at the hospital designed to help families navigate medical crises with greater support and resources. Nathan talks about expanding his construction business to include pro bono work for families who need home modifications due to disability or illness. All of their plans center around service to others, reflecting the values that have guided their family since its earliest days. They have learned that happiness comes not from acquiring things for yourself, but from contributing something meaningful to the lives of people who need help and hope. As Nathan looks around the table at his wife and daughter, he thinks about the legacy they are building together. Not wealth or status or impressive achievements, but a pattern of kindness that will ripple outward through all the lives they touch. The story that began with a little girl, $5 and a birthday cake, has become something much larger. A testament to the power of choosing connection over isolation, vulnerability over protection, and love over fear. And in bakeries and restaurants and community centers around the world, similar stories are beginning every day whenever someone notices another person's loneliness and decides to offer friendship instead of looking away. Sometimes all it takes is $5 a piece of cake and the courage to see someone's pain and choose to do something about it. Sometimes the smallest gestures create the most beautiful transformations. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, saving someone else turns out to be exactly how you save yourself. If this story has touched your heart, we invite you to subscribe to our channel for more stories that celebrate the power of human kindness and the families we choose to build together. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that hope is always possible, that connection can heal the deepest wounds, and that love really does triumph over circumstances when we have the courage to offer it freely. What's one small act of kindness that changed your life? Tell us in the comments below, because every story of compassion matters, and every gesture of love creates ripples that extend far beyond what we can see. Hit that like button. If this story reminded you that kindness is never wasted, and don't forget to share it with friends and family who need to hear this message of hope today. Your support helps us continue bringing you stories that restore faith in humanity and remind us all that we have the power to change someone's life with simple acts of love. Until next time, remember that you have the power to be someone's birthday cake partner, someone's reason to hope, someone's reminder that they are not alone in this world. Use that power wisely, use it generously, and watch what beautiful things grow from the smallest seeds of kindness.